Boa tarde, pessoal. Sejam todos bem-vindos. Hoje é mais uma transmissão em nosso canal WillPTV. Hoje, 18 de janeiro de 2024, pelo horário de Brasília. Agora são 16 horas e 36 minutos. Estamos então iniciando a nossa cobertura especial aí pela missão aí privada da Spacex, Axioma AX-3. Então, lembrando que esta missão, então, tem como objetivo de levar 4 astronautas, né, privados aí para a tripulação, para compor aí, então, a tripulação lá na Estação Espacial Internacional, onde eles vão, então, junto com a Expedição 70, realizar mais de cerca de 30 experimentos em microgravidade. O lançamento, então, está previsto para acontecer às 18 horas e 49 minutos, pelo horário de Brasília. E hoje, então, aí temos a nossa nave Dragon Endeavour. E ela já participou, então, de missões anteriores, como a Crew 4 e a AXIOM-3. E o lançamento, então, vai ser realizado lá no complexo de lançamento número 39A, no Centro Espacial Kennedy, na Flórida, nos Estados Unidos. E o pouso do primeiro estágio do Falcon 9, né, com a Dragon, vai fazer então o seu pouso na zona de pouso número 1. Né? E se tudo der certo hoje, a chegada então da tripulação da AXIOM-3 ocorrerá na manhã do dia 20 de janeiro. Então a chegada então, na Estação Espacial está prevista para o dia 20 de janeiro. Então a tripulação de hoje da AXIOM-3 hoje, ela é formada basicamente por toda ela europeia, né, sendo um deles, né, é um hispânico americano, né, com descendência aí americana, né? Então vamos ver a tripulação de hoje, né? O nosso comandante de hoje é o Michael López-Alegría, né? Então ele é da Espanha, aí com também aí nacionalidade americana. Ele é o comandante da missão. Nosso piloto da Itália é o Villadei. E os nossos especialistas da missão da Turquia é o Alper, Gezeravcı, e da Suécia, Marcos Wandt. Tá? Então eles vão fazer lá na Estação Espacial Internacional, então, cerca aí de 30 experimentos científicos e demonstrações aí focados então na fisiologia humana e tecnologia industrial de avanços então, na tecnologia industrial, tá? E lembrando ainda que estamos aí na perspectiva, já estamos aí com a nossa transmissão ao vivo com a SpaceX iniciando neste momento. Vamos então lá com a SpaceX. Né, lembrando que estamos aí no aguardo também da confirmação para a missão do Starlink, né, para amanhã. E também no dia 19, ainda a partir das 10h55 da manhã, vamos ter aí a cobertura especial aí do pouso do Slim, né, o módulo lunar japonês da JAXA. Então aí a partir das 10h55 da manhã de amanhã. Então aí já estamos ao vivo com a nossa cobertura da SpaceX, com a SpaceX, AXIOM e NASA. E também a ESA. Pelo nosso cronômetro, 2 horas e 8 minutos para o lançamento. Estamos aí então iniciando nossos trabalhos. Lembrando que a tripulação então da AXIOM-3 já está se dirigindo para a plataforma de lançamento, lá no complexo 39A, no Centro Espacial Kennedy, né? Últimas informações aí diretamente do X. E ontem, quem acompanhou aqui no nosso canal, né, tivemos aí o lançamento do modo da nave de carga Tianzhong-7 da China na parte da manhã, né, sendo realizada aí com sucesso, e ela acoplou na estação espacial Tiangong, aí também com sucesso, 3 horas depois do lançamento. E aí, portanto, já estamos iniciando a nossa transmissão em conjunto com a Spacex, AXIOM e NASA, e também a ESA. Turquia, Espanha, Estados Unidos, Itália e Suécia, formando então aí a tripulação de hoje da AXIOM-3. Primeira tripulação totalmente europeia. Aí está, portanto, Michael López-Alegría, Walter Villadei, Alper Gezeravcı e Marcos Wandt. Juntos, então, aí, tripulação europeia na AXIOM-3.
Everyone to the launch coverage of Axiom Mission 3, also known as AX3. The clock is actively counting down at Kennedy Space Center in Florida. And our 4 all-European crew members are already on board and strapped into Dragon, preparing for liftoff from Launch Complex 39A. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm John Rackham, Spacesuit Ventilation Lead for Axiom Space, based in Houston, Texas, and I am very excited to be covering Axiom's 3rd crewed mission to the International Space Station.
And I'm Kate Tice, Senior Quality Systems Engineering Manager here at SpaceX. It's so great to have you back with us once again,
Thank you,
John.
Kate. I'm excited.
We're here at SpaceX headquarters in Hawthorne, California, with
E, portanto, aí temos imagens da Dragon no complexo de lançamento 39A e imagens internas aí da Dragon.
Justamente aí com a tripulação já se encontra a bordo dentro aí da AXIOM,
96
da
missions
Dragon.
delivering astronauts, cargo, satellites, and other cool payloads to orbit. This includes the second Axiom mission, AX2, which launched to the International Space Station in May of last year.
Yeah, that's right, Kate. 2023 was a significant year for Axiom Space, which saw progress on the development of Axiom Station, as well as our lunar
2
space
horas,
suits for
5
NASA
minutos
and
e
the
30
Artemis
segundos
program.
para o
And as
lançamento.
mentioned,
Estamos
all
aí
this was
então com
punctuated by the
imagens
success of our AX2 mission, which saw 3 new astronauts fly to orbit under the command of Peggy Whitson.
Flight computer is now transitioning to pad hatch closed, and as a final reminder, ensure all items are secure from now through launch.
Então, nesse momento aí já a tripulação então já se encontra segura, né? Aí com a pressurização já terminada. Então aí concluída já a pressurização, e a tripulação então já se encontra segura e pronta aí para o
All right, so
lançamento.
there on the right-hand side of your screen, that's SpaceX Core or Crew Operations and Resource Engineer for today. That's Jake Vendel. We'll be hearing him communicate with the crew quite often today, as he is the primary voice to the crew, both while they are in space,
Lembrando que
as well
também
as
que
still on the
hoje,
ground,
né,
as we see them here.
a gente
That's a
teria
live view
aí na
between
madrugada, né,
our
a
commander,
missão
Michael
da Rocket Lab,
López-Alegría,
mas
and our
foi
pilot, Walter
transferida para o
Villadei,
dia
there on the
27
left-hand side of your screen.
de janeiro.
So, John, you were
Então, a missão
talking
da
about
Rocket
Peggy
Lab,
Whitson. I
missão
am a big
transferida para o
fan
dia
of Peggy, and it was
27
just so awesome
de
to see
janeiro.
her in the commander's chair for that AX2 mission.
E lá vamos nós novamente aí a primeira missão tripulada deste ano de 2024, aí começando então com a AXIOM-2, AXIOM-3, aí então temos aí a nossa tripulação de hoje na tela para vocês.
Well, this crew is the first all-European crew. We have
Lembrando
our
que é a
commander
primeira
MLA,
então
Michael
tripulação
López-Alegría, but
totalmente
beyond that, it's
europeia.
noteworthy to note that the AX3 is the first all-European commercial crew to visit the orbiting
Então aí
lab,
da esquerda
including
para a
the first
direita, o nosso
astronaut from the
comandante
country
aí,
of Turkey.
Michael
So we have a lot of ground to
López-Alegría,
cover today, but
da Espanha.
our immediate focus is those 4 astronauts
Então aí,
that you see on
portanto,
the
aí a
screen. So let's go
apresentação
ahead
da
and introduce
equipe.
them to you now. As I
Aí da
mentioned, first
Espanha,
up, the commander of our
Michael
flight today, Michael
López-Alegría,
López-Alegría, or MLA, is no stranger to human
aí da
spaceflight.
Espanha.
He's a dual citizen of the United States and Spain. AX-3 marks his 6th mission to space, having completed 3 space shuttle flights and a Soyuz mission as a NASA astronaut.
É a 6ª missão, então, que ele participa para o espaço.
MLA holds the NASA record for both the total number of spacewalks.
We're commencing a health check for the launch escape system. Expect a momentary flight computer change, and then we'll go back to pad hatch closed.
We copy, Jake.
Nesse momento eles vão fazer a checagem dos sistemas de escape na nave Dragon. Menos de 2 horas e 3 minutos.
NASA record for both the total number of spacewalks, or EVAs, and the cumulative amount of time spent conducting spacewalks. In 2020, he was inducted to the US Astronaut Hall of Fame, and today, when he's not in low Earth orbit, MLA serves as Axiom Space's chief astronaut.
Our pilot on today's flight, Colonel Walter Villadei
Nosso
from the
piloto
Italian
da
Air
Itália,
Force is taking his inaugural
Villadei.
trip to low Earth orbit. Villadei currently serves in the Italian Air Force and as head of the Italian Air Force's representative office in the United States. He has completed cosmonaut training as a space engineer, participated in multiple analog training missions, and flown a variety of aircraft and missions as an active flight engineer in the Italian Air Force. This mission is significant for Italy in that it commemorates the 100th year since the founding of the Italian Air Force.
And our third crew member
nosso primeiro especialista da missão da Turquia, Alper.
Through this mission, Alper becomes the first Turkish astronaut to go to space. With 15 years of experience across a myriad of aircraft for the Turkish Air Force, Gezeravcı got his start in the Air Force Academy in Istanbul, Turkey, and earned a master's degree from the U.S. Air Force Institute of Technology. He then flew as a commercial airline captain for several years before returning to duty in the Turkish Air Force. And on a further note, this mission marks the 100th anniversary of the founding of the Republic of Turkey.
And finally, we have
E nosso
mission
segundo
specialist
especialista da
Marcus
missão
Wandt,
da Suécia,
a lieutenant colonel in the Swedish
Wandt.
Air Force. He flew 9 years as a fighter pilot and graduated from the U.S. Navy Test Pilot School at the top of his class. In November of 2022, Marcus was selected by the European Space Agency, or ESA, as an astronaut reserve.
Européia.
However, with the AX-3 mission, he becomes the first project astronaut in ESA's history, a new designation in their ranks. In just a few short hours, he'll be only the second ESA astronaut of Swedish nationality to ever go to the International Space Station.
Quem ainda não se inscreveu no nosso canal, se inscreva, deixa o like aí na transmissão. Vamos juntos aí acompanhar então este primeiro lançamento tripulado da SpaceX com a
So as you can see there, this crew has an immense amount of training behind them, both individually and as a team. They bring years and years of experience and preparation to this mission. And together they make up that first all-European.
Estamos chegando próximos então na marca de 2 horas. 2 horas, menos 2 horas para o lançamento.
Open up the doors to others to follow. So this crew is prepared. They're now strapped in and ready. So let's recap how they got to this point. Crew first started their day with ending their pre-flight quarantine phase. They took a flight to KSC. They got to see their vehicle as they flew in.
Estamos aí também com 80% então de chance de ter lançamento hoje lá no complexo de lançamento 39A, Centro Espacial, Kennedy, Flórida, nos Estados Unidos.
At T-minus 4 hours, we had the weather briefing. Actually, there
E aí esse foi o momento aí da saída deles, né?
Crew as they exited the Falcon support building. That's about a half mile down the road from the launch pad.
Tempo regressivo, né? Então tivemos aí o momento então da saída da tripulação da AXIOM-3, direção à plataforma de lançamento.
Of course, they're physically fit. They could walk it, but we want to make sure they stay
ainda
cool and
pouco,
comfortable.
né? Eles já se encontram aí a
a
bordo.
Então
da Dragon.
This is a great view here of the crew. Just look at that calm,
imagens
that
aí
patience.
de dentro do veículo.
I feel like if that were me, I would just be busting with excitement.
Yeah, well, they are.
And then they get out of the Teslas, and then, you know, one of my favorite
então que eles
moments
chegam
for
aí à
whenever we
plataforma
launch
de
astronauts
lançamento.
from Pad 39A is coming up. It's really,
Essas são imagens aí de agora
we
a
should come up
pouco.
with like this astronaut lean back, something where this excitement of seeing their spaceship for the first time on launch day. Of course, they have seen Dragon, they've seen Falcon before.
É o momento então que eles começam a fazer o procedimento de
And at this
embarque.
point, we can see crew walking
Então
down there.
aí
You can see Marcus
Dragon.
Wandt and Alper. They're giving a thumbs up. They are excited to be on this flight today, and we're excited to have them.
All right, so as we saw, right, actually,
Portanto,
that view
temos
right
imagens
there, the
ao
crew,
vivo
they're
novamente
already in their chairs, they're strapped in. They are still, the closeout team on the exterior still working through the side hatch closure. But coming up next, we will have, actually, you can see that closeout team there.
Temos
So this involves closing the hatch,
SpaceX,
inflating the seal around the hatch to make sure that the pressure is
final,
good, and then they hold that pressure there to make sure there's no decay or leaking from that side hatch seal. Once we get confirmation that that hatch seal is good, we'll be good to go. After that, we are expecting a post-ingress brief to occur. We'll also have crew access arm, which is where these individuals are standing right now. This is in the crew access arm. As the name suggests, this is what allows the crew to access the Dragon capsule side hatch there, as you see. So we're going to retract that away.
Menos de 1 hora e 58 minutos para o lançamento. Estamos aí ao vivo, então aí acompanhando
excitedly anticipating in just under 2 hours from now, liftoff. So, with all of that, let's check in with Ronnie for a countdown status update.
Thanks, Kate. I'm Ronnie Foreman, a commercial sales manager here at SpaceX. We are currently just about 1 hour and 57 minutes away from launch, and everything looks good for an on-time liftoff later today. As Kate mentioned, the crew did receive a weather briefing just after T-minus 4 hours. As we approach liftoff, our teams are tracking weather all along the ascent and recovery corridors, ensuring that Falcon 9 is ready for launch and that all possible recovery zones are available if needed. We're currently tracking roughly a 20% chance of weather violation today, and the main constraint we're looking at is ground weather at the launch site. We'll keep you posted throughout the countdown as we continue to monitor those environments. But at Pad 39A, which you've got a view of on your screen, our teams are hard at work. Falcon 9 is powered up. Engine checkouts were performed overnight, and the pressurization of the gas storage tanks were completed earlier today, around T-minus 6 hours. Just a few minutes ago, Falcon began its final checks for launch, including a communication check with the crew, which should be coming up here shortly.
Então, nesse momento, a equipe já vai começar então a remoção aí da passarela
and if we're go, propellant load will begin at T-minus 35 minutes.
A escotilha
now, as with all of our launches to the International Space Station, we have an instantaneous launch window, which today is at 4:49 p.m. Eastern. The reason we need a specific time is because Dragon is basically trying to catch up to the ISS, which as we speak is orbiting the Earth at roughly 17,500 miles per hour. That means we have to deliver Dragon to the correct orbit, and we also need to time its trajectory relative to the orbiting laboratory so that they are both in the same place in orbit at the same time.
Menos de 1 hora e 56 minutos para o lançamento.
Timely rendezvous between Dragon and the space station.
Aí a missão
If,
AXIOM-3.
of course, for any reason we are not able to launch today, our next opportunity will be at 4 p.m. Eastern on Saturday. That's the latest update for now, and I'll check in again as we get closer to liftoff. Back to you, Kate.
Thanks, Ronnie. Speaking of liftoff, let's take a closer look at the vehicles that will be taking the AX-3 crew to the International Space Station today. At the very top of the vehicle is there at our Dragon spacecraft. This is where the crew is currently sitting and will spend their 32-hour flight to the International Space Station. This marks our 12th overall human spaceflight mission in the last 4 years, and in this time, Dragon has flown 38 people to orbit and back, plus the additional 4 NASA Crew 7 members that are still on orbit at the space station. Dragon and the AX-3 crew will be delivered to orbit today by the SpaceX Falcon 9 rocket, which provides 1.7 million pounds of thrust there on its first stage thanks to the 9 Merlin M1D engines. Named after the Millennium Falcon from Star Wars, the number 9 refers to the 9 Merlin engines that power Falcon 9's first stage. Since taking flight in 2010, our Falcon 9 rocket has made 298 flights and delivered all sorts of payloads to orbit. After today's launch, the first stage will return to SpaceX's Landing Zone 1 at Cape Canaveral Space Force Station, which you see a live view of that there on the right-hand side of your screen. It's about 9 miles as the crow flies from Pad 39A. Fun fact, this is actually the same landing zone where Falcon 9 made its first successful landing attempt back in 2015. So if it looks familiar, that's why. Since then, we have continued to recover and refly our first stage boosters, performing 235 repeat flights in total. Below the Dragon is the Falcon 9 second stage.
Pelo horário de Brasília, agora são 16 horas e 56 minutos. 55 minutos, né? Aí faltando então menos de 1 hora e 54 minutos para o lançamento.
And ultimately, what will enable humans to become multiplanetary. Both the first stage booster and the Dragon spacecraft that you see there will be that are flying today. They're both flight proven.
Mais uma vez, então, lembrando que estamos aí no aguardo da confirmação, então, para a próxima missão Starlink, que será na madrugada, então, aí do dia 19, pelo horário de Brasília. Então, aí tudo em ordem aí com a parte, então, aí da escotilha.
All right, good news there. We got confirmation that leak check was good, so the side hatch is now closed, and it will remain closed until the crew comes back to Earth in about 2 weeks.
Fantastic. All right, well, still looking at the view there. As we mentioned, the AX2 crew that flew in May 2023 launched on this exact same booster and flew the second flight of this Dragon capsule. So maybe when we get some views inside the cabin, we'll get to see an AX2 mission patch in there later.
As for the maiden flight, that was with NASA's Crew 4. And as the first crew to fly in this capsule, they had the honor of naming it, which is pretty cool because once a spacecraft is named, it will continue to go by that name for all future flights. Anyway, they chose the name Freedom. Crew 4 commander Charles Lindgren said that the name was chosen because it celebrates a fundamental human right and the industry and innovation that emanate from the unencumbered human spirit. The name also honors Freedom 7, which of course is the space capsule used by Alan Shepard's Mercury Redstone 3, the first U.S. human spaceflight mission, which took place on May 5th, 1961.
Yeah, Kate, I love that. On that note, right, with Alper on board, Turkey is taking their first step into human spaceflight on a capsule named after one that first carried the United States into space. It feels like such a poignant underscore to this historic event for the people of Turkey.
Absolutely. Now, speaking of Alper, let's talk about the training and that he and all the rest of the AX-3 crew have completed in order to be prepared for this mission. As you might imagine, astronaut training is extensive. From the training that is specific to each crew member's role to learning SpaceX protocols, ISS systems, and preparing for the science and outreach activities that they'll be conducting in space, private astronaut training is rigorous. Altogether, the AX-3 crew spent about 35 days training inside Dragon. To prepare them for flight, our teams at SpaceX spent the last several months teaching the crew about orbital mechanics and how to live in microgravity. We also used our Dragon training capsules to run simulations of ascent, ISS rendezvous, and reentry. The training program includes nearly 100 different lessons covering all aspects of the flight. The team also spent time at the launch pad, in our suit-up room, and working through emergency procedures that would be necessary in the unlikely event of a pad abort scenario.
Right, and beyond these efforts to get to and from station, this crew also spent months training for life on orbit. Living and working in microgravity presents its own set of unique challenges, and skill-specific training flows and simulations help ensure that when crew crosses that hatch, that they're ready to maximize their time on orbit and accomplish their mission objectives. So not only did they need to be certified by instructors at NASA, JAXA, ESA, and AXIOM Space, but they also needed to train with the AXIOM Space Operations team, who will help them conduct their on-orbit events. Ultimately, this team supports crew 24/7 for the duration of their mission. In order to best facilitate this level of coordination, AXIOM Space has leaned on the lessons learned of those who have flown before and built a team that is capable of tailoring a mission to the specific goals of our customers. As we know, every mission is unique. For AX-3, the Italian Air Force, the Turkish Space Agency, and ESA each have their own specific mission objectives for their respective crew members, and together, we are ready to ensure that they meet those goals.
Então já estamos aí com menos de 1 hora e 50 minutos para o lançamento. Você está assistindo então ao nosso canal Wilper TV. Aí pelo horário de Brasília agora são 16 horas e 59 minutos. Estamos aí ao vivo então com a missão AX-3, terceira missão da AXIOM, junto com a SpaceX, NASA. E também hoje, juntamente com a ESA, né, que a tripulação hoje é totalmente europeia. O horário do lançamento então previsto para acontecer às 18 horas e 49 minutos, pelo horário de Brasília, lá no complexo de lançamento número 39A, no Centro Espacial Kennedy, nos Estados Unidos. 17 horas, então agora pelo horário de Brasília. Então para você que está chegando agora, né, então a nossa tripulação aí, como eu falei, é formada aí pela totalmente europeia. Então vamos rever, né, quem é a tripulação de hoje. Nosso comandante, então, na missão de hoje da Espanha é o Michael López-Alegría, né? Além de ser espanhol, ele também tem nacionalidade americana. Nosso piloto da Itália é o Walter Villadei. E nossos especialistas da missão da Turquia é Alper, Gezeravcı e Marcos Wandt, da Suécia. E lá eles vão juntamente com a expedição número 70 na Estação Espacial Internacional conduzir então mais de cerca então de 30 experimentos aí na parte de fisiologia humana e também de avanços aí na tecnologia industrial e microgravidade. E lembrando que amanhã, dia 19 de janeiro, a partir das 10h55 da manhã, nossa live histórica aí da JAXA, aí com a missão Slim, onde então aí veremos o pouso deste pequeno módulo lunar japonês, aí então aí fazendo seu pouso na Lua. E estamos também aguardando a confirmação então para a próxima missão Starlink, aí que será a princípio então no dia 19 também, a nossa transmissão aí, se der tudo certo, né, aí a partir das 00:50 do dia 19. E se tudo der certo hoje com o lançamento, né, a chegada então dessa tripulação da AXIOM-3 na Estação Espacial Internacional se dará então aí no dia 20 de janeiro, na manhã do dia 20 de janeiro.
Axiom Space's Director of Digital Strategy at the Kennedy Space Center. Sonia, you've had a chance to talk with teams from each of the European nations represented on board today. Is there a common theme in what they're anticipating for this mission?
Absolutely. Thanks, John. You can feel the excitement here at
Então a
OSB2 with our
tripulação
special
já
guests
se encontra
who had a
a
hand in
bordo da
making this mission
Dragon,
a success. Our
e
partners
a
are
Dragon
moments
então já
away
está
from seeing
pronta
our
para o
shared
lançamento, né,
success
com
in opening
todos os
LEO
seus
to
sistemas
even more countries. We'll
acionados,
hear from
porta fechada
representatives from
e
each of our
selada.
crew members' home nations in just a moment. But let's start with Walter Villadei. Walter has been part of Team Axiom Space for years, starting back as a backup crew member for AX2.
17h03 pelo horário de Brasília. Você segue então aqui com a nossa transmissão no nosso canal UPTV. Estamos aí nos aproximando da marca de 1070 inscrições, né? Quero agradecer aí a todos pelas inscrições aqui no canal. É bastando aí apenas aí a gente completar então a questão dos horários, né? Para que finalmente a gente possa ser aí monetizado, né? Estou também aí ajustando aí também os vídeos, né, para deixar o canal aí mais organizado, né, para vocês aí poderem assistir, né, aí as nossas transmissões, né. Eu já deixei aí no caso organizado a parte então das nossas caminhadas espaciais, né, lembrando que a gente transmite as caminhadas espaciais aqui no canal, né, então aí eu deixei aí já no canal, né, aí um bloco aí só das caminhadas espaciais. E aí estamos vendo aí um pouco do nosso piloto Walter Villadei, da Itália. Lembrando que ele também já participou aí da Virgin Galactic, né? Também aí vimos aí, né? No canal, né? Temos o vídeo dele aí. Nos momentos então que ele estava a bordo da Virgin. E ele então aí é o nosso piloto de hoje aí da missão.
I'm joined now by Colonel Domenico Antonacci, who is here with the Italian Air Force
17 horas e 6 minutos pelo horário de Brasília. Então, aí menos de 1 hora e 43 minutos para o lançamento. Você está assistindo então o canal Européia TV, aí com a missão AXIOM-3.
Tell me a little bit about why this mission is happening now and what you're
então
looking
no
forward to
complexo de
in the
lançamento
success.
número 39A no Centro Espacial
Flórida,
nos Estados Unidos.
The reason for what we access the space today is not the same that was in the past. As a Ministry of Defense in Italy and especially the Italian Air Force,
lembrando que o horário do lançamento então de hoje é às 18 horas e 49 minutos. A tripulação então já se encontra toda ela a bordo, a Dragon.
This process
a
comes back
então
from
fechada
a long time.
e selada e todos os seus sistemas
After that,
acionados.
few years later, we did an agreement with the Italian Space Agency. And
Agora é só questão de tempo aí para a contagem regressiva e seguir viagem para a Estação Espacial Internacional.
So the ideas we had back at that time proved to be really innovative today.
That's great that you're taking advantage of these opportunities.
Menos de 1 hora e 42 minutos para o lançamento.
What are the Italian goals in space?
The Italian goals, the Ministry of Defense or the Air Force are the same as the government goals. What we do, we not only are
lembrando
looking at
mais uma
the
vez então que amanhã, 19 de janeiro, aí loja histórica para o Japão, onde finalmente aí vamos ter o pouso aí do Slim, pequeno módulo lunar.
Also, what we are trying to do here
O pouso então será na Lua, né? Obviamente, né? Aí com a nossa transmissão iniciando a partir das 10h55 da manhã.
The enterprises in Italy to give them an opportunity to be part of the space economy, but also other government organizations. So with us, for example, the Italian Space Agency is our big partner for research, and not only that, also very small business and the largest business we have in Italy.
Research and the research portfolio that the Italians are doing, that Walter is focused on for this mission, is so impressive. What does it mean for the research community to have that kind of focus during this 14-day mission?
You know, it's not easy to take research to space, so we are really proud to give the opportunity to big part of Italy, not only, like I said, not only the enterprises, and is not only, in this case, the Ministry of Defense. Walter, for sure, is an Italian Air Force guy, so he's in the Ministry of Defense. With us, a lot of other government agencies have been working with us. All together for the research.
Também a nossa programação, né, segue também aí sempre atualizada nas redes sociais, lá nas plataformas no X, principalmente no X e no Instagram.
And
você encontra mais
food
rápido
sovereignty
as
and
informações.
forestry, also the
X.
Ministry of Enterprises and Made in Italy was part among
As
our
informações lá no X são praticamente
And like I said, also
aí
for
em
the
tempo
research part, we
real.
have been working close together with the Italian Space Agency.
That's wonderful. And he, Walter brings that focus of a pilot now to the research that he's going to be doing in low Earth orbit. Congratulations on this milestone in your history, celebrating the years of the Italian Air Force. This is an exciting time. Thank you for being here. Thank you to the entire Italian contingent for celebrating with us. Just a couple of moments, we'll be really celebrating.
Thank you, and go Walter and go AX3.
Thank you so much. Stay right there. We're going to now turn over to meet some folks over on Marcus's team. Our next crew member to highlight is the first ESA project astronaut in history. You can see how Marcus was selected for this mission. He doesn't do anything halfway. When he goes after something, he's all in. And right now, his sights are set on space.
E agora vamos ver um pouquinho sobre o nosso Marcus Wandt, da Suécia. Menos de 1 hora e 38 minutos para o lançamento. Lembrando que hoje a nossa tripulação aí da Dragon, né, da AXIOM-3, é totalmente formada aí pela equipe europeia. Então temos os países Espanha, Itália, Turquia e Suécia. Então lembrando aí, né, que já está aí tudo praticamente pronto, né, para o lançamento, né? Então aí a tripulação já se encontra a bordo da Dragon, né, escotilha fechada e selada, sistemas ligados, né, tá tudo pronto aí, só aguardando então o tempo regressivo então aí da abertura da janela de lançamento em 1 hora e 36 minutos. E tudo dando certo hoje, a tripulação então chega na Estação Espacial Internacional no dia 20 de janeiro. Ainda mais no dia 20 de janeiro. E claro que nós vamos acompanhar aqui também.
I'm joined now by Daniel
E chegando lá na
Director
Estação
of Human
Espacial,
and
eles vão aí
Robotic
realizar
Programs for ESA.
cerca de
Welcome
30
another exciting
aí
moment and
experimentos
milestone
científicos,
in
né,
Swedish history and
base,
ESA
então,
history.
de
ESA just
fisiologia humana
launched this reserve
e
astronaut
também aí na
program.
base
Tell us why
do
that was
avanço,
something
então,
that you augmented your
da
programming
indústria
with and what it's done for the
da parte
success
de
of ESA.
indústria, né?
So, good afternoon to all. First,
em
these reserve
microgravidade.
astronauts are, in fact, talents which are set in a
O
pool.
horário do lançamento está previsto aí para acontecer às 18 horas e 49
and when the
minutos
opportunity
pelo horário
arises,
de
they can
Brasília.
become project astronaut as Marcos today, and I'm really excited because it allows us to do more space activities. It allows us to serve ultimately more member states of the
E a
European Space
cápsula
Agency.
da Dragon
So
de
as a
hoje, né, ela
reserve
já
astronaut,
participou de 2
Marcus
missões
had like a
anteriores,
2-year window, right?
como
This
por
is
exemplo
very
a
fast to be
4
going
e a
up into space.
AXIOM-3.
What was that timeline like for ESA and for Marcus?
E o pouso do primeiro estágio
first,
do Falcon
let's
9, né, da
recall, he has been
Dragon,
selected in
então
November
vai ser
2022.
feito aí
We are now
na
in January
zona de
2022. It hasn't even
pouso
been 2
at
years,
Kennedy
right?
Space Center. It's 1 year and 3
Tá,
months.
Canadá.
It's so exciting. I think it shows that we can really be fast. We can really be fast when
E
we
lembrando,
want.
mais uma
I
vez,
should
que
also
amanhã,
thank all the actors
19
who
de
made it
janeiro,
happen because it really
teremos aí a partir das
required an alignment of the
10h55 da manhã,
planets, literally.
nossa live então
Let
aí
me
para o
first start by
pouso
thanking
do
Sweden,
Slim
who
na
took the
Lua.
decision to finance
Então não
this
percam.
mission. Let me thank industry, who made it happen, AXIOM notably. but ultimately also my team, because there is also a big scientific program behind the mission of Marcus.
Yes.
And his training for him. And it was a game changer, and I'm happy to be here today.
Well, let's talk about that game-changing research. He has 14 days on this mission, very aggressive portfolio that he's going to be chasing to make sure that he's doing all that. Tell us some about those goals, some of those projects he's working on, and what ESA's looking forward to when he comes back.
So first and above all, our main objective is to bring forward science, very clearly. We have multiple disciplines here. It starts, for example, with bone health. To give you one example, it goes then over to technology demonstrators. So we really cover our different disciplines: human physiology, biology, material science, up to techno demonstration. So I think this is really a very nice program. Over 20 experiments, which will be done in less than 14 days. So that's really amazing. And on top of that, let's also not forget the second objective, which is about education, which is about outreach. And Marcus will do here a great job.
And Marcus has such enthusiasm and such energy. So, of course, people who are going to be tuning in for that educational outreach will be, of course, inspired by his journey and by the work that you're all doing. What is the next step for ESA? Where are you going next in this private astronaut missions and commercial projects?
So first above all, Marcus is already inspirational for all our colleagues, for people who work with him before he have even launched to space, and he will of course touch much more future generations when he comes back and can share with us his real experience in space. That's really the big difference. And then in terms of commercial activities, we are really stepping up significantly our work at the European Space Agency. We have commercial programs nearly in all domains we work today. In exploration, we definitely want to have more commercial actors when it comes also to our transport delivery missions. We want to have more commercial actors when it comes also to human space flight activities, for sure. And in this context, we will also have more project astronauts in the future, and I'm happy to come back here to Kennedy Space Center.
So we're excited for Huygen and Moonen, who are going to be joined together out in low Earth orbit on the ISS. Thank you so much to ESA for being such a wonderful partner with Axiom Space, doing wonderful work together. I hope that this is the start of a wonderful relationship that we take into the future.
Thank you. Looking forward.
We have some more crew members to introduce you to. Our next crew member is from the country of Turkey. We want to highlight the ambitions of this mission and the future in space for the country of Turkey. Here's more on Alper's inspired and unexpected adventure leading to low Earth orbit.
Segundo especialista da missão da Turquia, Alper Gezeravcı. Eu volto já já.
I'm joined now by Mehmet Fatih Kajar, the Republic of Turkey's Minister of Industry and Technology. It has been an absolute pleasure to work with your country and with Alper. He is inspiring, he's poetic. Tell us about this mission and what it means for all of the country of Turkey.
Actually, this is a very historic and proud moment for our country. And it's also a testament to our nation's advancement in science and technology.
AXIOM-3.
It's the first manned space mission of our country, and I think that this is not only a significant milestone in the history of our country, but also a very strong source of inspiration for Turkish children and youth.
Now, the country of Turkey has been involved in human space flight in the research category for over 30 years. You've been doing all of this aggressive research in space and low Earth orbit. Tell me about the research that Alper is going to be continuing and what kind of portfolio of opportunities that you're going to be working on over the next 14 days.
Actually, as Turkey, we are very experienced in space technologies. We are developing and manufacturing our own satellites, our own observation, and also communication satellites. And also we can develop and produce the rockets to reach the space. But when it comes to manned space missions, it's now the very first time for us. And this mission will be also a scientific mission. Alper Gezeravcı will conduct 13 different scientific experiments at ISS. All experiments are prepared by Turkish scientists, and we think that those scientific experiments will serve the scientific literature in the world. And some of them are on biology and genetics, and some of them are also on material science. But all of them are very innovative, and we will wait for the results of those scientific studies very soon.
That's the wonderful thing about these short duration missions, is that research comes back immediately for all the data to be processed. We're going to be talking a little bit more with Lucy Lowe, our chief scientist, in a couple of minutes about the entire portfolio of this mission. It's exciting work, and I can't wait to get into it. So you talked a little bit about the 30-year history. We talked about the research that's been ongoing. Talk to me about what the future of human space exploration looks like for the country of Turkey.
Actually, as Turkey, we are working on the National Space Program, and we have very assertive targets for next 10 years on space technologies. This is a manned space mission, but we also have some unmanned space missions. We aim to reach the moon with a space system developed and again manufactured by Turkish scientists and engineers. And after this mission, we will send the second Turkish astronaut for a suborbit flight, and then we hope that we will have many different manned missions next year.
Well, you're doing wonderful work. You've accomplished so much. It's been a pleasure to have you, Alper, the entire country along with us. I cannot wait for this historic moment for all of these wonderful countries and partners. Thank you so much, and go AX3 and go to the country of Turkey. Congratulations.
Thank you so much, and we thank you all and all partners in this historic mission.
Indeed, indeed. We have one more crew member to introduce you to, and that is our commander. Michael López-Alegría is the commander of this historic AX3 spaceflight mission. He is an icon, and we are proud to have him leading the way.
Agora vamos ver aí pouquinho sobre o nosso comandante aí da missão, Michael López-Alegría. Menos de 1 hora e 23 minutos para o lançamento. Estamos aí acompanhando um pouquinho da história aí sobre o Michael López-Alegría. Aí o nosso comandante de hoje da missão AXIOM-3. Então que hoje, né, a tripulação aí da Dragon, hoje totalmente aí europeia.
AX3 crew has been a pleasure to support. It's been an inspiring journey to watch as Michael López-Alegría's leadership really kicked in with this crew as they learned together. And I think all of our partners are really, I want to thank them for helping us learn more about each of the astronauts and their countries and their missions over the last couple of minutes. From the whole Axiom space team, we send our own well wishes. Go AX3. Ronnie, back to you.
We are currently T-minus 1 hour and 21 minutes away from launch as the AX3 crew awaits its 4:49 p.m. Eastern liftoff from Launch Complex 39A at Kennedy Space Center. Right now, the all-European crew is safely inside the Dragon capsule, and the side hatch was closed for flight at around T-minus 2 hours and 19 minutes. As we heard a few minutes ago, we've already gotten that good call-out that the hatch leak check was successfully completed. We're standing by right now for a post-ingress crew briefing, which should be held sometime in the next few minutes. That's where we'll give the crew any important updates about things we're tracking that could impact our countdown today. But the good news is that weather continues to be go for launch and any contingencies if
As
needed.
condições climáticas aí continuam boas aí para o lançamento.
Next up, at T-minus 45 minutes, our launch director will pull the team for propellant load. Just a few minutes later, the crew arm will begin to retract, and a few minutes after that, at T-minus 39 minutes, the launch escape system will be armed. Propellant load should then begin at T-minus 35. So far, it has been a smooth countdown, and everything is on track for an on-time liftoff a little bit more than an hour from now. With that update, I'll hand it back to you, John.
Thanks a lot, Ronnie. Well, Kate, as we watched the video earlier and we heard, this mission really represents three very different paths to this moment for this whole crew. But yet, here all of them are in their final preparations for an entirely new journey, both personally, professionally, and culturally. Quite honestly, I don't think missions like this ever get old for me.
Yeah, I mean, how can they? Every crew is a different team, and every team has their own dynamics. And
aí agora é só questão de tempo aí para então aí temos
people that were four strangers come together and be such a close-knit, really like family.
Yeah, and watching their interviews together too, you can see that they're prepared, but they're also so humble. And I think that's what's really appealing about this and inspiring about this is it's not about them individually. It's about the team and what they represent for their countries and what they're doing on orbit. So while they're looking at that work doing on orbit, we know that a lot of that is training for their research, right? That really puts into sharp focus just what all this preparation has been for. Training the crew to conduct their research efforts is one piece of this puzzle. But another aspect to a successful spaceflight mission is the effort behind the scenes. Preparing the research payloads, writing the procedures, and coordinating all of the logistics for that research to be loaded and flown to space. To be successful, that entire effort requires an army of dedicated and talented team members.
Né, que está aí
For
prevista
organizations
para
considering a research study
início da
in
madrugada então, do
microgravity, or
dia
for entities looking to
19.
demonstrate a new capability
Tudo der
off
certo aí
planet,
com a nossa
Axiom
transmissão
Space is built
iniciando
to
a
do
partir
just
da
that.
00:50.
We're a company that...
E lembrando, mais ainda, que também no dia 19, amanhã, a partir das 10:55 da manhã, teremos aí a nossa cobertura especial para o pouso na Lua do Slim, da JAXA, aí, módulo lunar japonês. E estamos chegando próximos aí também da marca de 1070 inscrições aqui no canal, né? Quem ainda não se inscreveu, né? Se inscreva e deixa o like na transmissão aí. Estamos aí com a nossa cobertura, né? Aí pela missão AXIOM-3, né? E tudo dando certo hoje. A Dragon então aí chegará na Estação Espacial Internacional aí na manhã do dia 20 de janeiro. 17 horas e 32 minutos. Faltando então aí menos de 1 hora e 17 minutos para o lançamento. Lembrando que o lançamento então vai ser realizado lá no complexo de lançamento número 39A, no complexo aí no Centro Espacial Kennedy, na Flórida, nos Estados Unidos.
Of course, a significant amount of the research and experiments performed in orbit need to be brought back, as Dragon is the only spacecraft currently flying that is capable of returning significant amounts of cargo to Earth, whether it's returning time-sensitive experiments from the ISS or bringing back science performed inside the spacecraft while on orbit. Dragon safely returns it home. While docked with the ISS, Dragon can also act as a lab, providing extra room for astronauts to perform their work. And when the ISS is fully booked, Dragon even serves as an extra bedroom when necessary. In fact, NASA astronaut Mike Hopkins, as you see there, adding his name, his signature to the patch, commander of the Crew 1 mission, he slept inside Dragon Resilience during his entire 6-month stay aboard the station. Look at that view. Imagine having that every night from Dragon's cockpit right before bed. Dragon can also serve as a laboratory while orbiting the Earth. During the Inspiration 4 mission in 2021, which was the world's first all-civilian mission to orbit, the crew conducted research while traveling weightless at over 17,000 miles per hour. On the Inspiration 4 mission, Crew Dragon's cargo capacity was allocated for both crew essentials as well as scientific equipment dedicated to microgravity research and experiments. And the Dragon research continues long after Dragon splashes down. The data and biological samples collected from Inspiration 4's crew members before, during, and after the mission, that will all be accessible through an open data repository or biobank, and that can be accessed for research purposes. While Dragon is responsible for delivering sensitive research and samples, that's just part of the story. For this mission, Dragon is also carrying something for the right-brained hemisphere of the brain.
Yeah, I love that, Kate. You know, it's really easy for us to make this connection between STEM and spaceflight. But over the last few years, we've been seeing a shift, right, from just STEM to also STEAM. And that includes the arts. We're putting more emphasis on those things that are so human. So today's teachers, you know, they have to teach the values of both the importance of arts and engineering, because arts will always have a place in space. It's an essential element of culture, an essential element of exploration.
Absolutely.
So for this mission,
SpaceX, for your awareness, closeout team has departed the crew arm.
SpaceX Dragon, we copy.
And with that, Dragon, I've got a post-ingress brief for you. Report ready to copy.
Ready to copy.
Okay, Dragon, we are officially through the hurry up phase, and now we have a little bit of time to wait. Clock is at T-minus 113 and counting. Dragon and Falcon systems continue to look healthy, and vehicles are ready for a launch attempt today. Weather continues to look great, and we'll keep you updated if anything changes. How copy so far?
Very pleased to copy all so far, Jake.
Okay, I do have one item for you looking ahead in the timeline to the first Dragon burn on orbit. That's the phase burn at 22:33 Zulu. I have some info you might want to record. Report ready to copy.
Ready to copy.
Okay, for your awareness, we have a TDRS gap starting at 2225. That's 11 minutes before the phase burn, and it ends at the same time the burn ends. That's 2242. The impact is that we in Hawthorne will not have live data or comms during the burn. That said, pending successful on-orbit Draco checkouts, we will be taking the burn and will rely on onboard vehicle automation to halt the burn if necessary. After the burn, we'll get a data dump and catch back up with the vehicle. It's not unprecedented in our flight history to not have data during the burn, but I'm letting you know. How copy?
Okay, give us a minute here, Jake.
Então aí
Sure
basicamente
thing.
aí
And let me know if you'd like any of that repeated.
segue então aí com todos os sistemas indo bem aí então para o lançamento, né, com tudo indo aí de acordo com o cronograma. E também aí a parte climática também segue boa para o lançamento. Menos de 1 hora e 11 minutos e 40 segundos para o lançamento.
What you've read. I think the only question is we had a little confusion on your math, or maybe it's our math, but the burn start is 22:33. The LOS is 22:25 to 22:42. I thought you said 11 minutes, but either way, we'll come AOS around the end of the burn. You guys will get the data, and then we'll talk about any deltas, correct?
Okay, I understand the confusion. I called burn start 22:33. It is actually 22:36. That's my mistake, and explains the 11-minute gap then between 25 and 36.
Yep, all clear now. Thanks.
Quem está chegando aí agora, estamos acompanhando a primeira missão tripulada neste ano de 2024 aí pela SpaceX Dragon, pela missão AXIOM-3, missão privada aí com a tripulação toda formada aí pela Europa. Onde temos aí então os seguintes países aí participantes de hoje, né? Pela Espanha, Michael López-Alegría, nosso comandante da missão, ele também que é parte americana também. Nosso piloto da Itália, Villadei, e os nossos especialistas da Turquia,
All right, so that was the post-ingress crew briefing. That's the opportunity for SpaceX Core, which is the crew operations and resource engineer, to relay any important information to the crew as we see seated inside Dragon Freedom. We do this every launch, and that was actually a great example of why we do this and like the structure of those briefs and communication.
E a Dragon de hoje, então, ela já participou.
Jake Vendel. The SpaceX Core today basically was saying really good news. Everything is looking healthy on both vehicles, Falcon 9 and Dragon, and the weather looks great. Like, that is music to our ears on launch day. He also gave the crew an update on the timeline regarding an expected loss of signal right around the phase burn, which is one of the burns that Dragon performs in order to reach the International Space Station. And you heard Core say how copy, and then crew basically processed that information and said, wait a minute, we have a question, and so I thought that was a really good example of why we do what we do whenever we have these back and forths, because sometimes something gets misread or something is not understood, and it's absolutely critical that we have clear communication to make sure that everybody is on the same page and is expected. So all in all, really good post-ingress brief. Like I said, all music to our ears, so everything is looking good for our liftoff in just under 1 hour and let's see, we're looking at 1 hour, 8 minutes and 45 seconds.
That's a perfect recap, Kate. You know, for something like that, that really emphasizes how we're going to get in the future together into low Earth orbit and beyond, right? So for Axiom Space, our future is Axiom Station. In the last 2 years, our team has grown from a few hundred engineers to now over 1,000. Our designs have gone from concept to mock-ups to the machining of flight hardware. So here's how our future is taking shape.
E lembrando ainda para vocês, né, que nossa live amanhã, a partir das 10h55 da manhã, teremos aí a cobertura especial para o pouso na Lua do Slim, aí do módulo lunar japonês da JAXA. A partir das 10h55 da manhã. Estamos também na guarda aí da confirmação aí para a missão Starlink. Aí também na madrugada do dia 19, aí dando início a nossa transmissão a partir das 00h50. Às 17h42 pelo horário de Brasília. Então aí faltando 1 hora 7 minutos para o lançamento. Aí agora é só questão de tempo, né? Já tá tudo pronto aí, né? Tudo acertado. Né? Agora aí é só questão realmente de tempo. Então ainda quem não se inscreveu no nosso canal, né, se inscreva e deixa o like aí na transmissão. Estamos chegando aí já na marca aí de 1070 inscrições aqui no canal, né? Quero agradecer demais aí a todos pelas inscrições. Lembrando que aqui também a gente não só tem como as transmissões aí das missões, né? Além claro, também das caminhadas espaciais. E também aí conteúdos de matemática e programação em Python. Então aí vídeos para todo mundo. Uma hora e 6 minutos para o lançamento. E aí então após o lançamento, né, a nossa cobertura vai seguir até a abertura do nariz da Dragon, né? E aí a gente volta com a transmissão aí amanhã não, dia 20, né? Com a chegada da Dragon na Estação Espacial Internacional. E portanto, menos de 1 hora e 4 minutos para o lançamento. Estamos aí com imagens ao vivo, então, da Dragon. Aí na plataforma 39A, no Centro Espacial Kennedy.
For those of you that have recently tuned into our webcast, we are now 1 hour, 3 minutes, and 45 seconds away from the launch of the AXIOM-3 crew to the International Space Station. Joining us now from ISS Flight Control Room at NASA's Johnson Space Center is Courtney Beasley. Welcome, Courtney.
Hi, Kate and John. I'm happy to be joining you guys today, and we are looking forward to launch from Mission Control Houston.
Courtney, we're so happy to have you guys here today. We're happy to be together in this room and talk about this crew. AX3 is the first, all European crew. This is a historic flight for them. It's a historic flight for AXIOM and NASA and SpaceX. This is an incredible group. They've worked diligently, both individually and together, to get to this moment. They're representing, across the 4 of them, 5 different nations. Like, as you mentioned, they've trained extensively as a team, but now they're ready to be a part of that effective and contributing ISS team.
Yeah, as we mentioned before, Michael López-Alegría is the first repeat flyer in the Dragon program history, which...
SpaceX Dragon for cabin temp.
Dragon SpaceX, I think that was for cabin fan. Go ahead.
Actually, Jake, it was for cabin temp, and we're feeling just a little bit on the cool side here, wondering what the options are for warming it up.
Copy. Understood. We'll take a look at it.
Thank you.
All right, some quick back and forth there with the crew and SpaceX core, basically just asking to if there's any options to warm up the cabin. They're a little cool. As I was saying, MLA, our commander today, he is our first repeat flyer in the history of the Dragon program, which I guess means that we have to make a frequent flyer member club of some sort.
I think you need to give him a punch card for this, and he's no stranger to Dragon, as we're going to look at now. So the voice you heard there, like Kate just mentioned, Michael López-Alegría, MLA, who's no stranger to human spaceflight. He's actually a dual citizen of the United States and Spain, and AX-3 marks his 6th mission to space, having completed 3 space shuttle flights and a Soyuz mission as a NASA astronaut, prior to commanding AX-1 with Axiom Space. MLA holds the NASA record for both the total number of spacewalks and the cumulative amount of time spent conducting spacewalks. In 2020, he was inducted into the U.S. Astronaut Hall of Fame, and today, when he's not in low Earth orbit, MLA serves as Axiom Space's chief astronaut.
Our pilot on today's
Nosso
flight,
piloto de
Walter
hoje é o
Villadei,
Walter
is from the
Villadei, da
Italian
Itália.
Air Force and is taking his inaugural trip
Ele já
to low
participou então
Earth
também
orbit.
de missões
Villadei currently
anteriores
serves
aí
in the
como
Italian Air Force and as
Working
head
Gallant.
of the Italian Air Force's representative office in the United States. He has completed cosmonaut training as a space engineer, participated in multiple analog training.
SpaceX, for a different topic, we are about to send a command to cycle the orbit tank ISO valves to equalize low flow pressure. You should hear it. How copy?
Okay, we copy. We're standing by.
All right, just notification there to the
And
crew.
Dragon, I've got an update on the cabin temp, and it's not necessarily favorable. There's not much we can do at this point from the ground, especially anticipating the heating that will incur during ascent. I'd like to assess if this is something you think you can ride out for another hour here.
Absolutely, Jake. Just wanted to ask, but we understand what the priority is here.
Copy, Dragon. Yeah, appreciate
Menos de
you
uma
asking.
hora.
Sorry we can't do
Uma hora
more
para o
in
lançamento.
this situation.
Back to Walter, he has completed cosmonaut training
Então,
as a
voltando à
space
apresentação
engineer,
então da
participated in
tripulação de
multiple
hoje,
analog
temos aí
training
da
missions
Itália,
and flown a
Walter
variety of
Villadei,
aircraft and missions as an
aí o
active
nosso
flight
piloto
engineer
de
in the
hoje.
Italian Air Force. This mission is significant for Italy in that it commemorates the 100th year since the founding of the Italian Air Force.
E aí
Now,
o
our
nosso
third crew member for
especialista
today's
da
mission
missão
is
da
mission
Turquia,
specialist Alper Gezeravcı. Through this mission, Alper becomes the first Turkish astronaut to go to space. With 15 years of experience across a myriad of aircraft for the Turkish Air Force, Gezeravcı got his start in the Air Force Academy in Istanbul, Turkey, and earned a master's degree from the U.S. Air Force Institute of Technology. He then flew as a commercial airline captain for several years before returning to duty in the Turkish Air Force. This mission also marks the 100th anniversary of the founding of the Republic of Turkey.
17 horas e 50
And finally,
minutos.
we have mission specialist
E o nosso
Marcus
último
Wandt,
especialista
a
da missão
lieutenant colonel in
da
the Swedish Air
Suécia,
Force who flew
Marcus
9 years as a
Wandt.
fighter pilot and graduated from the U.S. Navy Test Pilot School at the top of his class. In November of 2022, Marcus was selected by the European Space Agency as an astronaut reserve. However, with
Então,
this
temos aí a
mission,
nossa tripulação
AX-3, he
aí toda
becomes the
formada
first
aí
project astronaut
por
in ESA's
países
history,
da
a new
Europa,
designation within their
por
ranks.
astronautas europeus.
In just a few short hours, he'll be only the second ESA astronaut of Swedish nationality to ever go to the International Space Station, a milestone marked in a year of jubilee as the 500th anniversary of the founding of the country of Sweden. So, that is the AX-3 crew. We are now under an hour until liftoff. We're at T-minus 58 minutes and 10 seconds. And they're going to be heading to the International Space Station.
Pessoal, falta pouco, hein? Falta pouco aí para o lançamento, 58 minutos.
All right, and with that, let's
Estamos
check
aí de
in with
volta
NASA's
aí,
Courtney
então, aí,
Beasley.
a plataforma de
Thanks, Kate.
lançamento.
I'm
Agora
here
estamos
in the
aí
International Space
no
Station Flight
Centro
Control
Espacial
Room
em
at
Houston.
NASA's Johnson Space
Centro
Center
de
where
controle,
teams
então,
staff
aí
this room around the
da
clock to monitor the crew
Estação
and
Espacial
systems aboard
Internacional.
the orbiting laboratory. And today, they're ensuring that the station is ready to receive Dragon and the AX-3 crew. Since NASA opened up the space station for commercial activity in 2019, the agency has continued to work with private industry to prepare for the future of low Earth orbit. Now, NASA's long long-term goal is to no longer be a provider of low Earth orbit destination, but to be a customer, one of many, purchasing commercially owned and operated services. To ensure this path of tomorrow, we have to work together today. Enabling private astronaut missions on board the space station helps us to refine and mature the processes needed for the future, with NASA astronauts working side by side with private and national astronauts in a new age of science and discovery. And we take this next step together as we continue counting down to launch the AX-3 crew to the International Space Station. Now, it's an incredibly busy time in low Earth orbit and beyond, and NASA wants to scout the moon before returning astronauts. So next month, it will send several science experiments aboard Intuitive Machines' Nova-C lander, which will launch on a Falcon 9 rocket.
Menos de 56 minutos e contando aí para o lançamento. Estamos aí então na fase aí, contagem final aí, já menos de 1 hora para o lançamento. Estamos aguardando apenas aí a confirmação então aí do recuo, né, da plataforma, né, que liga a Dragon. Para seguirmos então aí a contagem final regressiva. Por enquanto, então, a Dragon segue indo bem aí, então aí com os preparativos aí para o lançamento.
He is expected to touch down on the moon next month, and you can watch live coverage of the historic landing on NASA TV and NASA Plus. Now let's check back in with John and Kate in Hawthorne.
Thank you so much, Courtney. You know, it's such an exciting future we have to look forward to, and it doesn't really feel that far off. You know, every day behind us, all over the country, back in Houston, there's work happening to bring about this vision.
Yeah, that's right. Even as we speak, SpaceX teams are preparing for our upcoming launch of the Intuitive Machines Nova-C lunar lander, known as the IM-1 mission. This will be the first SpaceX-provided launch of NASA's Commercial Lunar Payload Services Initiative, a key part of NASA's Artemis lunar exploration efforts. And down at Starbase, Texas, we're continuing to build, test, and fly Starship, the world's most powerful launch vehicle ever developed. It's a fully reusable transportation system that will transform how we access space because it's designed to carry a massive amount of cargo and large numbers of people to Earth orbit, the Moon, Mars, and beyond. We completed 2 flight tests last year, one of them you see here on your screen now, and 2024 is lining up to see even more Starships take flight. We're still in the testing phase, but things like flying rapidly, full system reuse, and on-orbit refilling will be key to building and staffing a viable moon base. And right now, we're gearing up for Test Flight 3, currently targeted for sometime in February. We're also building a second Starbase launch tower, which visualization you see there, that will further increase Starship's flight opportunities. And I love this. This is so cool looking. It's not that far off in the future. With our Starship Human Landing System, or HLS, we're part of the global team with NASA and companies including Axiom Space that will put astronauts back on the moon under the Artemis program. First, we're going to fly, and fly often on flight tests, one of which will be an uncrewed mission all the way to the moon. This will take place before the crewed Artemis 3 mission, which will be the first human expedition of the moon surface since 1972. Also in testing, our engineers are proving out all systems necessary to make a trip to the moon possible, like propulsion, life support, even the elevator that you see here that will take crew and cargo from the Starship hatch down to the lunar surface. It's literally a space elevator.
That's awesome, Kate. And in addition to the launch and landing capabilities that you just mentioned, another essential component of the Artemis program is a spacesuit that is capable of executing a wide array of mission objectives. A spacesuit really is a spaceship. It's just a little smaller and in human form. So, in order to develop a lunar spacesuit that meets all of the objectives for Artemis, Axiom Space is building the Axiom Extravehicular Mobility Unit, or AXIOM-U, back in Houston, Texas. Our next-generation spacesuit is built to provide greater flexibility and mobility, allowing astronauts to work on the moon in ways that were not possible 50 years ago. We've also put a strong emphasis on modularity, meaning that the AXIOM-U suits will support a wide range of body sizes and types. From the hand-built soft goods to the life support, advanced avionics, and communication systems, this entire AXIOM-U system is built with integrity and care from head to toe. And I'm truly honored to say that I'm a small part of that amazing team. Leveraging years of this human spaceflight experience and partnering with numerous industry leaders, Axiom Space is ensuring that the Axiom
Aqui está chegando agora,
astronauts to
estamos aí
succeed on
acompanhando a
Artemis
missão
and beyond.
AXIOM-3.
There's
Missão
so much to
tripulada,
look
primeira
forward to
missão
with this
tripulada
groundswell
em
of focus on the
2024,
moon.
aí
It's
pela,
just incredible that humans
lançada então
are
aí pela
finally going back to the
SpaceX,
moon, and
a
the
nave
efforts of
Dragon,
SpaceX and Axiom get to
lá no
play
complexo
a vital role in
39A,
that.
no
I
Centro
know, I love that we
Espacial
get to be a part of
Kennedy,
this in
na
our
Flórida,
generation, right?
nos
Like, this
Estados
is what
Unidos.
commercialization of space looks
Hoje,
like.
então, aí
It
a
takes
tripulação
cooperation,
com
takes
formação
coordination, and a lot of dedication.
totalmente
And AX3 is
europeia,
a critical step in demonstrating
os
those
países
core
então
components.
Absolutely. Now,
representantes
for
aí
those
da
that have just recently
Espanha,
joined, we are now
Itália,
about 51 and a half
Turquia
minutes away
e
from launch.
Suécia.
The clock continues to count down to the launch of
Onde eles
AX3,
estão,
so
onde então eles
let's
ficarão
share
por
some of
14
the
dias
highlights of the day that
lá na
got us to
Estação
where we are now.
Espacial Internacional.
Exactly. So
E eles
crew
farão
wrapped up
aí
their
cerca de
quarantine phase,
30
taking a flight
experimentos
from their quarantine
científicos,
facility
né,
at
com base
Kennedy
aí
over to
da
Kennedy Space Center. You can see them there in the
fisiologia
helicopter as
humana
they think about their
e
flight and
também
pass
no
over the
avanço de
Cape.
equipamentos
And what I think is really cool
industriais.
about this is they get to see their vehicle from this perspective too as they come in, right?
Yeah.
And at this point, you know, they're going to touch down, they're thinking about their mission, and then they get to wave to their families. They get to see, they haven't seen them in so long. They get to wave to them, have a final goodbye. And at this point, this is where we
51
really
minutos
hand
para
over
o
to
lançamento.
SpaceX to complete the rest of the day.
Yeah, absolutely. Look at
Lembrando
those smiles.
mais uma
Everyone
vez,
is
né, que
excited, as
amanhã,
they should be.
Yeah.
a partir das
So
10h55
after they arrive and
da
after they're
manhã,
handed over to the crew,
nós vamos acompanhar aqui
they
ao
go
vivo
through a
também
series of events
o
such as
pouso
putting their suits
do
on.
Slim, da
Obviously, they
pequena-
take a ride up to,
pequeno
here we
módulo
can see there,
lunar aí
this
da-
is the moment where they walked
AXIOM.
out of the Falcon support building. This is where our
Fará o
SpaceX
pouso, então,
suit-up room is
na
located.
Lua.
They stand here, do another wave. Really, this was the first opportunity that we got to see the crew
São
in their suits today.
imagens
Got
de
in those
agora há pouco, né,
Teslas
de mais cedo.
and drove up to the launch pad, which is about
Desceu aí
roughly
mais
a
cedo
half
aí.
mile away from where those doors are. I'm always curious what music they're listening to
Oh, yeah.
during this ride. You can see here that they are pulling up to the launch pad. 2 Teslas. We have the crew split in half there with some closeout team members that obviously help support them. We lovingly refer to them as the ninjas because we see them all around
Também
assisting the
estamos no
crew
aguardo
in
aí
things
também da
like getting
confirmação da
into or
próxima
ingressing
missão
the
Starlink.
capsule. So
Está
here,
prevista
this is
aí
one of my
para
favorite moments of launch
início
day,
da madrugada
and they
do
get to see
dia
their
19.
rocket up close. And man, just thinking about the fire that's going to come out
know.
at the bottom there in just under an
Então, são
hour.
imagens de hoje mais
Yeah, and
cedo.
at this point, you can see our commander and our pilot walking down, as well as Marcus and
Aí
Alper
com
to their
o
Dragon
ingresso
capsule
então
before
aí
they get
da
in.
tripulação aí
Yeah.
a
So at
bordo
this
da
point in
Dragon.
time, that side hatch is closed. We had the post-ingress crew briefing, and we heard great news. We heard that the
segue,
weather
então, aí,
is looking
tranquilamente.
good. I
Aí,
think the
agora só
exact
aguardar.
words
Então,
were
aí,
weather is
tempo
great
regressivo.
and that everything is healthy. So both Falcon 9 and Dragon vehicles are ready to go
Lembrando
to
então
space,
que
just
o
like the crew.
Falcon 9
Excellent
de hoje,
recap,
né,
Kate.
ele vai fazer o
All right, well,
pouso
it's important to remember that
na
this crew
zona de
has not
pouso
walked
número
this
1,
path to flight alone.
Cabo Canaveral.
Earlier today, they waved to their friends and family before suiting up, as we just saw.
E nós
But
vamos
that
aí
wasn't the
acompanhar
first round of
nesta
cheers that their
transmissão de
families had
hoje,
for
né,
them.
até a abertura do nariz da Dragon. E aí a chegada deles na Estação Espacial Internacional, né, será aí para o dia 20 de janeiro. 18 horas pelo horário de Brasília. Menos de 48 minutos para o lançamento. Falta menos de 47 minutos agora para o lançamento, hein? Falta pouco. Não se esqueça de deixar um like na transmissão e de se inscrever no nosso canal.
From AX2.
Temos aí a tripulação
yeah, it's
aí.
just so fun to see everybody's cheers. Space
AXIOM-3,
really is for everyone, including everyone that loves the people going to space.
Engine operators on countdown. Polling is complete. Both Dragon and Falcon teams have pulled go for launch escape arm, propellant load, and launch. Stand by for abort instructions.
Estamos aí aguardando aí
T-minus 45 minutes.
o início,
Both control
então.
rooms go into lockdown and remain in that state until the launch escape system is disarmed. All operators are to remain at their console and maintain a sterile cockpit until MD confirms successful disarming of the launch escape system following orbit insertion or propellant offload in the event of a scrub. For non-urgent no-go conditions, brief the CE or LD and they will approve aborting the countdown. For urgent issues affecting the safety of the operation, operators shall call hold on the countdown net. Launch control will abort the launch auto sequence immediately and proceed into launch abort. At T-minus 10 seconds, launch control will be hands-off and relying on automated abort criteria for the remainder of the count. Operators advise the launch director whether structural breakup or fire is imminent or
Então,
occurring.
tá falando aí sobre os procedimentos aí, né, do lançamento. Nesse caso, então, aí der algum problema.
Launch control at this time. You may proceed with arming the crew arm for movement.
Launch control copies, proceeding with arming crew arm for movement.
Por enquanto, então, aí segue tudo em ordem aí com o lançamento de hoje. 45 minutos. Estamos aí então com o lançamento ao vivo aí para vocês aí do Falcon 9
Well,
com a
there you heard
Dragon.
it. We are go to proceed with propellant load in just under 10 minutes.
Crew arm retract has started.
And we are beginning to retract that crew access arm. Both the Falcon
Então, aí,
9
nesse
and
momento,
Dragon are
estamos
go
aí
for
vendo
launch. Wow,
o
great view of that
recuo
on your screen right now.
da passarela.
And in a moment, we should hear some additional directions from our
Recuo
launch
da
director
passarela
to the
nesse
team.
momento.
Now, of course, the crew is currently on board, again with that great view of the crew access arm moving away from Dragon. They're at historic launch pad 39A. So now the range continues to be go for launch, and we're monitoring the clearance area around the launch pad, as well as air and sea space
Na
around
marca
the
então de
flight corridor.
35 minutos, né, para o lançamento.
Even though
Teremos
we have
o
been keeping
início
an eye on some
do
possible storm
procedimento
cells
de
near the launch
abastecimento do
site, the
veículo.
conditions are predicted to be acceptable for launch. Downrange landing zones, if needed for an escape, are also go. Now, the full retraction of that crew access arm is expected to take about 2 minutes and will be followed almost immediately with the arming of the launch escape system.
Crew arm retraction is complete.
There's
Recuo da
confirmation that
passarela
that's complete.
completada.
And with that, I'll hand it back to you, Kate.
Thanks, Ronnie. As we heard, the crew access arm is now moved out of the way. It is in its launch configuration. This is one of the last physical changes to the pad that we will see prior to the liftoff of the AX-3 crew. The next milestone that we have coming up will be arming of the launch escape system.
With that, you are go for Section 6, close visors, and arm launch escape system.
18 horas e 6 minutos pelo horário de Brasília.
All right, so right now the crew is activating the launch
Nesse momento
escape
aí,
system. They're
os
using
capacetes
the
aí sendo
tablets there,
fechados.
the touch screen in front of them. This system is the first of its kind escape system. It provides the escape capability all the way to orbit. It is our
SpaceX Dragon visors closed, arming launch escape system.
Nesse momento aí, capacetes fechados.
We take every measure possible to ensure the crew has options at all times, including an escape in the worst of scenarios. It is our most solemn duty to make sure the crew gets home to their families. And we're here now seeing like we said, the crew is activating the launch escape system. If engaged, it would utilize the Super Draco engines, which are basically extra powerful versions of the Draco engines that Draco uses while on orbit. So, generally speaking, we don't want to activate the Super Dracos, but they're there in case of necessary. So launch escape system arming is now underway. But let's talk a little bit about the control rooms that we are operating.
The system is verified armed.
Estamos aguardando então aí o início do procedimento de abastecimento do veículo do Falcon 9
here,
aí
this is our mission control center in here just behind us actually in at SpaceX headquarters in Hawthorne, California. We also have launch control at Firing Room 4 at Cape Canaveral. That team is responsible for monitoring Falcon 9 throughout the countdown and the launch. Whereas here, Mission Control is responsible for close monitoring of the crew and Dragon every step of the way as the spacecraft orbits the planet along its customized flight path. On console, or on headset, as we say, are a number of key positions who are monitoring the health of the vehicle and the crew. The mission director, call sign MD, as you'll hear out on the nets, that person's responsible for mission success and is in charge of the room. You'll also hear a specific role dedicated to communicating to the AX3 crew. We've heard from this individual a couple of times already today. This is Jake Vendel today. This is the crew operations and resource engineer, call sign core on the nets. The other positions are focused on things like software, propulsion, navigation, avionics, life support systems, and ultimately communications with the ground segments. SpaceX team members will also rotate on and off to ensure that we have 24/7 coverage of crew and Dragon for the entire duration of the mission, all the way through splashdown. So fun fact, we also have a crew supporting the NASA Crew 7 team in an adjacent control room just next door to this one. So yeah, we have 24/7 coverage for all Dragons up at the space station.
That's awesome, Kate. And on that note, for Axiom Space, teams in Houston, as you can see there, coordinate mission support at Axiom Mission Control Center, or MCCA, as you can see on your screen. MCCA is an officially certified control center, joining a large network of other control centers, like you just mentioned, Kate, that support ISS from all over the world. From this secure facility, teams have live access to voice, video, data, all of that streaming from the ISS, and can work alongside their NASA counterparts to run on-orbit preparations and monitor every aspect of the mission in real time, 24/7, for the duration of the mission. This room is led by what we call an AXIL, or Axiom Operations Lead. And around the room are also additional supporting flight controller positions that are each responsible for different aspects of mission support. That includes things like research, communications, medical, integration and stowage, and timeline operations. This is a significant step in our journey to expand access to low Earth orbit, as it is only the 12th ground segment partner for the ISS program. And through this facility, we are providing our customers and the global community a front row seat to the work being done on station.
Yeah, as you can tell by the names like Core and Axel, these are really important roles, and everything else kind of flows around them as the center point in those leading those operations, whether it's on the Axiom side or the SpaceX side. So, as we await our T0 in just under 39 minutes from now, the ground operations teams are doing a series of system checks to make sure both the Dragon and Falcon are ready for launch. Let's take a look at what the ascent portion of today's mission will look like.
E no Instagram, onde lá eu coloco para vocês, no caso do X, né? As informações aí são
Once we hit T-0, we'll watch Falcon 9 and Dragon lift off from historic Launch Pad 39A, which you have a great view of right now, and begin to make their ascent. At about 43 seconds into flight, Falcon 9's engines will throttle down to help us pass through the period of maximum dynamic pressure on the rocket, or what we typically refer to as max Q. It's worth noting that once we hit max Q, the vehicle will be going supersonic, or faster than the speed of sound.
Once we are through the period of maximum dynamic pressure, we can throttle up our Merlin engines again. From there, at about 2.5 minutes into flight, we have a series of 3 events that happen in rapid succession. First is MECO, or main engine cutoff. This is where all 9 Merlin engines shut off in preparation for stage separation. Stage separation is where the first stage detaches from the second stage, with the first stage making its way back to Earth for landing, as the second stage continues on its journey with the third event.
That's second engine start 1, or SES1, where the Merlin vacuum engine on board stage 2.
Expect cloud venting from the vehicle in 30 seconds.
Where the engine on stage 2 lights up and propels the second stage, along with our AX3 crew and Dragon, into orbit.
As stage 2 heads towards its targeted drop-off orbit, stage 1 will execute 3 burns in order to make its way back to Earth. The first is the boost back burn, where 3 of the Merlin 1D engines will reignite and shut down. This heads the first stage back to Cape Canaveral. The second burn, or the entry burn, helps slow the stage down in preparation.
Falcon 9 tanks are venting for the startup propellant load.
Estamos aí no aguardo aí do início do
Second burn or entry burn helps to slow the stage down in preparation for that entry back into the Earth's
abastecimento aí com o
atmosphere.
propelente.
And about 90 seconds after Dragon gets into orbit, Falcon 9 will land back on Earth. The landing burn will bring the
Aí
vehicle
o
speed
pouso
down
então do primeiro
rapidly in
estágio aí
order
está
to
esperado
land
aí na
back on
marca de
land
9 minutos.
near the launch site about
lançamento.
8 minutes into the mission.
And
Após
while
8
that
minutos
first
aí,
stage
8
is heading
minutos e
back to
39
Earth,
segundos
the
após o
second
lançamento.
stage will cut off its Merlin engine that was ignited right after stage separation. Once this happens, we'll wait for confirmation of a good orbital insertion. Then, Dragon will begin preparations to separate from the second stage. About 3 minutes after the second stage
Então, aí
reaches
após o
orbit, we
desligamento
should
do
have a
segundo
great
estágio
view of Dragon
e a
with its
confirmação de
4-person
boa
crew
órbita,
drifting away from
teremos
stage
aí
2.
a
Once
separação
Dragon
aí da
is a short distance away, it
Dragon
will begin checking out its Draco
e
maneuvering
logo depois
thrusters to
o
make
início
sure
da
Dragon
abertura
continues to
do
increase separation
nariz aí
distance
da
from the second
Dragon.
stage.
E aí depois
The
segue
nose cone
viagem
deploy sequence will
até
initiate
a
just before
acoplagem
T plus 12
na
minutes
estação.
and then finish around T plus 15 minutes. This will expose Dragon's docking mechanism in advance of its arrival at the International Space Station. For us, these Dragon missions are important for safely flying astronauts so they can conduct
E aí
scientific
vamos
research
seguir
and
aí
other
até o tempo
activities
de
in
15
space,
minutos
but
mais ou menos
also
aí,
because they are laying the
após
foundation
o
for the
lançamento
future
aí
where more people
da
from more countries all
Dragon.
around the world will have an opportunity to travel to space, whether it's low Earth orbit, the moon, Mars, or beyond. In the history of human spaceflight, less than 700 people have ever been to orbit. At SpaceX, we want to help create a future where not just hundreds of people, but thousands and ultimately millions of people can travel off Earth to live and work in space and on other planets.
Estamos aí chegando na
Last
fase
year, we flew 6
35
Dragon
minutos
missions. This
para
year,
o
we could
lançamento.
launch up to 8 missions,
Guardando
including
então
5 or 6
o
human
comando então
spaceflight
para o
missions,
início do
and that's
abastecimento.
only going.
Propellant load has started.
Abastecimento
Right
sendo
now, we just
iniciado
heard the
neste
call that
momento.
Falcon 9 has begun
Abastecimento aí
loading
com
its
propelentes
propellants, liquid oxygen,
iniciando
and
neste momento.
RP1 rocket-grade kerosene. So good news there. As I was saying, this year that could include 5 or 6 human spaceflight missions, and that's only going to increase in the future. Thus far, we've only launched crew missions from Launch Complex 39A, which is what you see on your screen now. However, to support our growing manifest of Dragon missions, we've recently made some new upgrades to our other Florida launch pad, Space Launch Complex 40, which you see there with a brand new crew access arm being lifted. We're on our way to having 2 launch pads capable of supporting human spaceflight missions, meaning we'll have more opportunities to fly people on Dragon to orbit. If you're interested in helping us advance the future of human spaceflight and potentially fly on a future Dragon mission, check out spacex.com/human-spaceflight
34 minutos
to
para o
learn more.
lançamento, como vocês podem ver ali ao fundo ali também, temos já a plataforma ali do Starship, né, já montada ali,
All
né?
right, so let's talk a
futuras
little bit
missões.
about the training that the crew has gone through in order to be ready for this mission. Altogether, the AXIOM-3 mission crew spent about 35 days training inside Dragon, and crew members individually received additional training specific to their role, learning SpaceX protocols, ISS systems, and preparing for the science and outreach activities that they'll be conducting while in space. Private astronaut training is rigorous. To prepare the AX-3 crew for their mission, our teams here at SpaceX have spent the last several months teaching the crew about orbital mechanics, how to live in microgravity, and running simulations of full missions from inside our Dragon training capsules. The training program includes nearly 100 different lessons covering all aspects of flight. And if you're thinking it's kind of hard to tell what's the true training and what's real capsule, that's true, because they're pretty much identical, and that's the point. The team also spent time at the launch pad, in the suit-up room, and working through emergency procedures that would be necessary in the unlikely event of a pad abort scenario. So let's take a further look at this crew in action.
Exactly. The crew spent extensive amounts of training time in historic Building 9 at the Johnson Space Center, with certified instructors on all critical systems necessary to ensure a successful stay aboard the orbital laboratory. The team even prepared for unlikely emergencies, like you mentioned, Kate, and learned how to provide first aid in a microgravity environment. Additionally, they learned how to prepare food and make selections for their meals, as well as learning other mission control positions and how mission control operates to better ensure that mission success during their flight. They also had a chance to familiarize themselves with the gear that will enable them to document their trip, their research, and help them connect with those back on Earth during their outreach events. ESA and JAXA
Eles vão
also play a
ficar,
critical role
pelo
in
que eu
cruise
vi,
training.
né? Eles vão ficar
Each
aí a
module
bordo
on orbit has its own
da
nuances,
Estação
so
Espacial
gaining insight
Internacional
into the
por
specialties
14
of their racks
dias.
and modules is necessary, especially for this
32
mission.
minutos.
Extensive training on station navigation, on-orbit familiarization, emergency response, and repetition of walking through processes and procedures all help the crew maximize every second that they have during their flight. Simulating science research, operations, and even discussing how to sleep in space are all necessary lessons on the path to mission readiness. Now, the National Outdoor Leadership School, or NOLS, provides very unique Earth-based experience for many astronauts before they fly. This is really a bonding experience for the crew. It can't be overstated how much teamwork factors into every aspect of their flight together, and this training in particular aims to thoroughly establish that. They also focus on survival skills, resilience, leadership, equally as important as followership, and overall teamwork to ensure they really are more than just passengers on the same rocket. The camping and outdoor adventure provides a solid foundation for the team to build on throughout their training. NOLS was definitely a highlight of this crew's preparation and training, and you can hear it in their voices and see it on their faces when they talk about their bond with each other. Now, you can't truly experience flying into space until you fly into space. But some really unique tools have been developed to provide the closest experience possible. An altitude chamber can challenge the body with oxygen deprivation in a controlled and safe manner, while
Stage 1
human-sized
cryo-helium load has started.
Centrifuges send the crew members for a spin to simulate the G-forces that they'll experience on launch and re-entry. It can be a bit nauseating, but it does help the crew know exactly what to expect on launch day. Now, at the end of it all, a mission patch is celebrated, and it is hung in a tradition since the earliest days of spaceflight. So fittingly, as AX-3 heads to the International Space Station, the crew had the chance to be present for the patch hanging ceremony of their mission patch in Building 9 on that module in Johnson Space Center. Spaceflight is a serious business, but moments of levity and celebration like this help everyone pause and reflect on the incredible accomplishments being achieved every day. No matter how many patches join a canvas like this one, each one is incredibly special because of the people who make it possible.
30 minutos, menos de meia hora para o lançamento.
So now for more on each crew member's portfolio, we're going to send you out
Horário
to
de
the Kennedy
Brasília
Space
agora,
Center with
18
Sonia
horas e
Van Karma
19
Kay,
minutos.
the Axiom Space Director of Digital Strategy, who is joined by Axiom's Chief Scientist, Dr. Lucy Lowe.
Agora, questão de tempo aí. Falta
Building
pouco,
on the success from AX-1 and 2, now 3 has over 30 experiments, and some of them returning customers. Lucy, good to have you back. This is one of my favorite parts of the pre-launch broadcast because we get to talk about all the science that's happening. There's so much happening. It's over 350 hours of research, which is great. But do we think like this is going to help us here on Earth? Does it really?
Absolutely. So everything the crew is doing, it has huge benefits, not only for spaceflight and advancing exploration goals for humanity, but a lot of the research they're doing is really based on benefiting humans down here on Earth, whether it's healthcare, medicine, different kinds of technology applications. Everything they're doing has really tangible benefits to science and technology back down here on Earth.
If you had to summarize each of the country's portfolios, how would you do that? Italy, give me some words.
They are doing some fantastic technical applications for the Italian Air Force, and they are doing some really advanced biomedical research as well with some of their companies that they're working with.
Excellent. Turkey, it's all about bringing all of Turkey together.
Exactly. Turkey has a truly national portfolio. They have everyone across the country getting involved, from researchers at universities all the way down to school children.
ESA and Sweden, what's their portfolio looking like?
ESA has a very strong focus on research for advancing technology for exploration. So they have lots and lots of really cool technology demonstrations that are going to help human exploration in space in future.
And tech demos as well. Do you as chief scientist, is that tech demos a different thing, or is it then research, or all part of the same wonderful pot?
They're very much part of the same pot. So all the technology demonstrations that take place are built on a lot of research, and they often feed into future research that will take place to keep crew safe or to benefit human health here on Earth.
Okay, so let's dig in a little bit deeper, starting with Italy. They have the ISOC services for the ISS. Tell me a little bit more.
Yes, so this is a project from the Italian Air Force, which is the Italian Space Operations Center, where they've developed some software that's actually going to be analyzing debris in space.
Which is a huge problem.
It's a huge problem. We need to know where stuff is going and stuff is flying so that we can make sure that the space station is out of the way of those kinds of impacts. So that software is also going to be doing some space weather forecasting to help keep crew safe in future.
Space weather forecasting?
Yes. Looking at different kinds of space weather from solar flares, for example, that can actually release damaging radiation that can not only damage human cells, but can also damage the electronics in a spacecraft. So you want to avoid that when you can.
Makes sense. Beta amyloids aggregation updated.
Yes.
This is about Alzheimer's research.
Exactly. So beta amyloid is a protein that aggregates together. It forms clumps. It forms amyloid plaques that are found in the brains of humans with Alzheimer's. If we can understand how those aggregates form better, which we can use microgravity to really investigate that, then we can gain insights into Alzheimer's disease and how this terrible neurodegenerative disease can form, or potentially how we could even treat it.
And you talked about that weather forecasting, which is part of radiation. That's a big part. So briefly tell me about the Italian portfolio with radiation research.
Exactly. So they have got some light ion detector hardware that they have built that is going to be analyzing the real-time radiation risk from this kind of space weather. And we also have some companies that have got some advanced materials that they've developed that is designed to shield from some of this radiation in future.
Okay, let's talk about the country of Turkey's research portfolio, the Turkish Space Agency, otherwise known as TUA. They have 70 types of diseases that they're going to be researching with AI technology?
Yes, so they have a really cool project called Vocal Cord, which has developed, it's an easy-to-use telemedicine application where the crew actually cough or speak or make vocal noises into an iPad for recordings, and the AI software is then actually able to analyze that and can be used to detect or diagnose infectious diseases, potentially even cardiovascular diseases in future.
Wow.
Very cool.
Partnerships are a big deal with Axiom Space. All of these countries are partners with us, and Turkey is working with JAXA on one of their research projects. Tell me about that one.
Exactly. So they're working on a very cool project using the JAXA's electromagnetic levitating facility, where they are melting and then re-solidifying some metal alloys in a way that the metal alloy floats in space.
Wow.
So which helps us understand more about the molecular structure of these alloys and helps us understand more about materials research, that we can then take that knowledge and apply that to industry back down here on Earth.
And ESA in Sweden, looking way into the future. Their research is focused on humans in long-term space situations. Tell me about their research projects.
Exactly. So one of their projects is called Orbital Architecture, which is a really fun one. They're investigating what the effect of the very busy and crowded environment of the International Space Station is, not only on crew cognitive function, but also on the crew's stress responses, and also their neural responses. So, yes, as you can see, that the ISS is very, very busy.
Estamos aí acompanhando a missão AXIOM-3, primeira missão tripulada da SpaceX em 2024.
For example, if you look out the window, if your stress response goes down, do you
Missão
then
essa em
perform better
direção à
in space?
Estação
And how can we then
Espacial
apply those technologies not
Internacional.
only for future spaceflight, but also for engineering and building design back down here on Earth?
There's also a great one on Simon. Now, my question is, Simon, is it more like HAL or TARS?
So it's a bit more like TARS, because I'm a big fan of The Martian. But yeah, so Simon is the crew interactive mobile companion. Here he is flying through space. So this is an AI-guided tool that is free flying on station that can help crew with tasks while they're up there. So it's actually going to be helping Marcus do a physical sciences investigation for ESA while he's up on station.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Lucy. And I look forward to hearing about the post-experience and post-mission research findings. Thank you so much. Always fascinating. Back to you all at Hawthorne. John, how's it going out there?
Tripulação aí também.
It's going great, Sonia. Thank you very much for
Dragon
that.
segue também
hearing all that different research really kind of cements how important and unique each mission is, right? Each mission has its own suite of research. It has its own crew that makes up that mission. And mission patches really are a way of showing that symbolism and showing how unique that is, right? So they end up everywhere. There's one in that Dragon capsule. There's a few in that Dragon capsule now, I think, right? But they end up in white rooms. They end up on orbit. They end up on laptops and notebooks. It's a very big deal for crew to be central in helping design this patch because it's such a lasting mark of their dedication and hard work. And the AX-3 crew has put their mark on spaceflight history with the AX-3 mission patch. All 4 astronauts are highlighted by their names, a star, and unique graphics for each nation that they represent. With the commander, Michael López-Alegría, holding dual citizenship, 5 national flags mark the top edge. The destination, the International Space Station, is the anchoring element in the middle. And interesting to note, the ISS resembles pilot's wings. So it should be no surprise, given that all 4 members are indeed pilots. Along the bottom of the patch, we see the mission's motto, the phrase plus ultra, in Latin meaning further beyond. So together, all of this builds on the mission's theme of exploration and its slogan, exploring further without borders.
Yeah, like you said, they do end up everywhere. My personal favorite place is there inside the capsule. There's 2 patches in there, one from the Crew 4 mission and one, of course, from the AX-2 mission, which also took this capsule to space. So I think it's safe to say that we're going to be flying so much that we are going to potentially run out of space for patches.
We'll put them on the back of the seats, maybe.
Yeah. Now, the SpaceX teams have SpaceX has teams all across the country supporting our missions in key roles, and they're in key locations such as our mission director, our core or crew operations and resource engineer, which you see there on your screen now. And these people are very important. We keep talking about the countdown, and this launch countdown is the framework that syncs all of these teams up together. It's incredibly
A chegada da tripulação à Estação Espacial Internacional será aí no dia 20 de janeiro, aí na manhã do dia 20 de janeiro.
Because communication is key. The entire mission, from launch, on orbit, all the way back down to splashdown, is a tightly choreographed dance between all of those parties, and that's where communication comes in.
For sure. It's precise communication specifically is
E temos o
paramount
centro de
throughout the
controle aí
mission in
da
order to be
AXIOM
successful, not
e
just
da
for today
SpaceX.
and on the way to the station, but continually for the next 2 weeks, all the way through splashdown. Like I mentioned before, we have another team supporting the capsule that's on station for Crew 7. So yeah, it's all the way through until the mission is complete.
Exactly, and highlighting that communication, you see those two teams just on your screen there. Those are two of the many that work together. So to help facilitate that comm, Axiom Space is connected with that entire network of participants through MCCA in Houston, our mission control center at Axiom headquarters. That's what you see on the right there. And from SpaceX, NASA, and other international space agencies and researchers, we can talk together. So there are teams monitoring and participating in this mission around the world, including mission controllers in Japan and across Europe. When you all add it up, it really is a truly international endeavor.
Yeah. Now, speaking of international, let's check back in with International Space Station Mission Control Center at NASA's Johnson Space Center. Courtney, how are things looking over there?
Hey, Kate. The space station team here in Houston is focused on the critical systems on the station, all continuing to function as expected ahead of launch. The teams have verified the command path from the ground up through our constellation of communication satellites to the station, and everything is looking good, and the station will be ready to receive Dragon
E, portanto,
Saturday
temos
morning.
aí a marca
Now,
regressiva
once
em
the
20 minutos.
AX-3 crew arrives at the station, there will officially be
Pelo horário de
7
Brasília
nations
agora,
aboard the
18 horas
station.
e 20
They will be greeted by the
minutos.
Expedition
E
70
aí
crew,
temos aí a
NASA
tripulação
astronauts Andy Mogensen,
da
Jasmine
Expedição
McBelly,
70,
and
está a
Laura
bordo
O'Hara,
então da Estação
Roscosmos
Espacial
cosmonauts Konstantin
Internacional.
Borisov, Oleg Kononenko, and Nikolai Chub, and JAXA astronaut Satoshi Furukawa. And once Dragon is fully docked to the station, the team here in Houston will assist the
Formada
Axiom
aí
Space
pela
and Space Station
Dinamarca,
astronauts with leak
Japão,
checks as
Estados
they work
Unidos
to open
e
hatches
Rússia.
on both the Dragon side and inside the station's pressurized mating adapter. We expect hatch opening to take place approximately 2 hours after docking. Flight directors Diane Daly and Diana Trujillo are on console now, leading flight controllers for launch, and flight director Judd Freeling will lead teams for docking on Saturday.
18 horas e
Mission
30
control in
minutos pelo
Houston is
horário
go for launch.
de
Now with
Brasília.
that, let's connect with Sonia at Kennedy Space Center.
Faltando aí 19 minutos para o lançamento. E aí segue também aí já o abastecimento sendo feito aí pelo oxigênio líquido. Lembrando que então, os combustíveis então, do Falcon 9, né, da Dragon, né, são aí o propellant e oxigênio líquido. Então agora aí é só questão de tempo para o lançamento. Lembrando que mais ou menos então na marca de 4 minutos teremos aí o recuo do suporte de apoio the Falcon 9 Dragon.
All right, for those of you that have recently tuned in, we are now within 20 minutes
E aí
until
depois
the
aí a
launch of
confirmação do
AX-3 to the
abastecimento então
International
do primeiro
Space
estágio
Station.
na marca de
Officially,
3
T-minus
minutos.
18 minutes on the
E
dot.
depois na marca de
We've
2
had
minutos
a pretty
a
clean
confirmação
countdown so
do
far today. As I
abastecimento
mentioned
aí
before, this launch
do
countdown
estágio
is the
2.
framework that syncs everybody together. We have teams
Então, para quem está chegando
in
agora,
Houston,
estamos aí
here at
acompanhando a
SpaceX
primeira missão
headquarters in
tripulada
Hawthorne,
da
California.
SpaceX com a AXIOM-3.
Of course, at the Cape
Aí
itself,
no
firing room
centro,
4,
no complexo de
and
lançamento
everything is
número
proceeding
39A, o Centro Espacial Kennedy, nos Estados Unidos, em direção à Estação Espacial Internacional. O lançamento aí previsto aí para acontecer às 18 horas e 49 minutos, com a tripulação aí formada aí por países da Europa, né? Espanha, Itália, Turquia e Suécia. Com o nosso comandante tendo aí Michael López-Alegría, piloto Walter Villadei, da Itália, e nosso especialista da missão da Turquia, Alper, Gezeravcı, e da Suécia, Marcos Wandt. 17 minutos.
Onto the vehicle, as well as rocket-grade kerosene, or RP1. We will continue to see these clouds kind of
e o pouso do primeiro estágio do Falcon 9 fará então aí, será realizado lá no completo, na zona de pouso número 1, no Cabo Canaveral.
All of its propellant loading. Like I said, everything continues to look great. The crew is currently strapped into their seats. There's a 5-point safety harness. You can think of it like a seatbelt, but it's a little bit more advanced than that.
E dando tudo certo aí, a sua chegada na Estação Espacial Internacional será no dia 20 de janeiro.
As we are getting
Com transmissão aqui ao vivo também.
All right, so there we heard that call out that stage 2 LOX load has initiated. That is
então, nesse momento, sendo iniciado aí o abastecimento do oxigênio líquido no segundo estágio.
The part of the rocket just below that black and white trunk section that we see there on screen. So the crew, we there at this
e lembrando que amanhã, a partir das 10h55 da manhã, teremos transmissão aí histórico da AXIOM, onde ela vai pousar o seu módulo
To his right is Commander Michael López-Alegría, or MLA, and on the very far right, Mission Specialist Alper Gezeravcı. Fun fact for today's flight, it is the first time that we have a repeat flyer on Dragon. That's Commander MLA. He flew on the AXIOM-1 mission, and it's so exciting to see him flying once again in Dragon today. He's pretty much an expert at this point.
Yeah. All right, well, thank you for that update, Kate. And now for an update from Sonia Van McKay at Kennedy Space Center with Deputy Administrator Bill Nelson.
Na marca aí de
Thanks so much, John. I'm now joined by NASA Administrator Bill Nelson. Thank you so much for joining us. We're so very close. NASA has so many decades worth of great relationships in the private sector with the commercial sector. Is this a winning strategy for the future? I know NASA is looking now further than LEO into going to the moon and even further. What does this look like going further, and what are we building on?
It's the new era of the golden age of space adventurism. We go back to the moon, for example, not only with our commercial partners, and the 2 landers will be built by commercial companies, but we also go back to the moon with our international partners. Right. And that's quite a difference from a half century ago when we first went to the moon. And that's the way that our space flight is in low Earth orbit as well. Look at the international cooperation on the space station. Look at now the commercial operation on the space station as evidenced by this flight here today.
This moment really is that culmination of that international partnership, private, commercial, all of these things building on each other. How important is this for NASA to develop these commercial partnerships and across varying fields? I mean, Axiom Space, of course, building the Axiom Station. We're working on the suits that'll be worn on the moon by the Artemis crew. How important are these partnerships for NASA?
Well, it's essential. We want to get out of low Earth orbit. We want to go and explore the cosmos.
Estamos também no aguardo também da confirmação pela missão Starlink. Essa vai ter aí no início da madrugada aí do dia 19, né? Então fiquem ligados.
For example, replace the International Space Station when it ages out in 2030 with a commercial space station,
Aí aos poucos
that
também estou
then
organizando
we
nosso
can
canal, né?
become
Aí para
a
você
person who rents
aí poder
space
estar acompanhando
to train our
novamente aí,
astronauts
quem quiser
before we
rever,
send them out
né?
to
Os
the moon
vídeos, né?
and
Das
on to
transmissões
Mars.
anteriores.
Or
Inclusive aí
the
tem já o
business
campo no
aspect,
canal, né?
pharmaceutical
Campo inicial aí
research,
do canal.
pharmaceutical
Tem destaque
production,
aí para vocês aí
all kinds
já
of different
rever
research
aí as
utilizing the
transmissões
properties
anteriores das
of
caminhadas espaciais,
microgravity
tudo na
in
íntegra,
space.
né?
So you're seeing the Axiom station as an expansion of the area that is available to do this work, and this dynamic shift between NASA and organizations like Axiom Space really offers something new to the landscape. This really is the next golden age, isn't it?
Well, and Axiom is one of several that are now with incentive money from NASA building their concepts of a space station for low Earth orbit. And I am certainly hopeful that they are going to be successful and that increasingly as they do research in space, they're finding out that there's a business case in order that they can actually have a profitable business.
Well, that's what we're looking forward to, and we're looking forward to just this great moment as we build these partnerships, these relationships. Thank you so much for having us here and for being part of this broadcast and sharing this wonderful moment for all of our organizations, SpaceX, Axiom Space, NASA, working together as usual, right?
Thank you so much.
Thanks so much, Senator. Thanks for joining us.
Go AX3.
Go AX3, that's right. As we charge towards terminal countdown to launch, Michael López-Alegría, today's commander, has a special message for his crew. Let's take a look.
Man, I am excited. We are getting very close. As we get to these last few minutes, I want to make sure we take a second to thank the training teams that got us here, that prepared this very professional team of astronauts to go to the International Space Station on this very historic mission. First, the NASA teams, both at Johnson Space Center in Houston and at Marshall and Huntsville, Alabama. Then to our international partners, ESA at the European Astronaut Center in Cologne, Germany, and Scuba near Tokyo in Japan, and the Axiom team, whose help really was important when it got down to training for all the payloads that we'll be doing, over 30 experiments, as I think you've heard. So we're excited and very thankful to all those guys, but last but not least, to the folks in whose very capable hands we find ourselves right now, that's SpaceX. Thanks to everybody. Without you, we couldn't have been here. Now let's go do it.
E aí, portanto, chegando na marca de 10 minutos.
Great view of our AX3 crew there, strapped in and ready for liftoff just over 10 minutes from now.
Dragon SpaceX, confirm crew displays are configured for launch.
10 minutos para o lançamento. Neste momento, a tripulação da SpaceX está configurando aí a tela para o modo de lançamento.
MLA, I do not mind at all. You've got the floor.
So first I want to thank our partners who had the vision and the conviction to help Axiom open access to humans to low Earth orbit, and they are the Italian Air Force and its various ministries of its government, the Space Technologies Research Institutes of Turkey, TÜBİTAK, and the Turkish Space Agency and its ministry, as well as the Swedish National Space Agency in tandem with ESA.
8 horas e 40 minutos pelo horário.
And I also want to thank the team. If you're listening to this through an earpiece sitting in hangar X and launch control or in the Hawthorne and mission control, you're on the team. And the same is true of people who'll be sitting at those consoles and consoles just like them, and mission control in Houston and the payload operations and integration center in Huntsville. Same is true for all the trainers that helped us get where we are today with the crew ready to launch. And of course, the engineers, technicians, managers, and executives who, over decades, designed, assembled, and are now operating the most complex vehicle in the world that we have the privilege to go visit. Same is true for the visionaries who conceived and developed this amazing rocket that we're sitting on and the beautiful and capable capsule that we're sitting in. And if you're in the Rescue Ops Center, you guys are on the team. And of course, so are our friends and families who have given us their love and support from the very first step of this journey. And last but not least, the team at Axiom Space, the people who have poured their blood, sweat, and tears into this. To the 4 of us that are lucky enough to man the good ship Freedom at this point, are humbled to be on the team. We're grateful to our teammates, and we are go for launch. Plus ultra.
Copy all, Mike. As we just ticked through T-minus 8 minutes, I'll let you know you've got a whole bunch of people rooting for you here and indeed all over the world. Godspeed, AXIOM-3.
Tá tudo pronto aí para o lançamento de hoje. Menos de 7 minutos, 20 segundos para o lançamento. 18 horas e 42
really
minutos.
Nice words there coming to us from Commander Michael López-Alegría. We are now approaching
Estamos aí
7
com uma
minutes
tripulação aí
until
formada aí
AX3
basicamente aí por países europeus. Então, aí temos os países participantes: Espanha,
Engine chill has started.
Itália.
Just on time, that call out tells us that we are now flowing a little bit of the super chilled liquid oxygen through the engines, through those turbo pumps to help bring the temperature down of that hardware. This helps us to reduce any chance of thermal shock whenever the full flow of that super chilled liquid oxygen flows into the engines.
Nosso piloto da Itália, Villadei, e os especialistas da Missão da Turquia, Alper, Gezeravcı e Wandt da Suécia.
Box load continues for Falcon 9. We're fully...
Stage 1 RP1 load is complete.
Nesse momento, o propelente do estágio 1 está concluído.
We have completed loading RP1, which is a highly refined type of kerosene on board stage 1 of Falcon 9. You've got that great view on your screen.
6 minutos.
As we mentioned earlier, Falcon 9 is an RP1 and liquid oxygen
6 minutos aí para o lançamento.
LOX fueling continues on the vehicle on both the first and second stage.
Blue skies there at the launch site. We're launching out of pad 39A
Estamos aí no
at Kennedy
complexo
Space
de
Center.
lançamento número
We
39A no
are
Centro
go for
Espacial
those weather
Kennedy.
conditions, which we're always keeping an eye on around the Florida airspace. Next event that we have coming up is the terminal count for Dragon. This involves a couple of things, but primarily just means that Dragon will be transitioning to internal power. Great view there of the Dragon capsule, as well as the Dragon trunk, which is the unpressurized section just below the pressurized section, which of course is where we have the crew sitting. Propellant remains underway. We are completely loaded with all of our RP1, that rocket grade kerosene. We're still underway.
Tanks are pressing for strong back retract.
Então nesse momento estamos aí
Dragon is in configure for terminal count.
Fase terminal aí da contagem regressiva.
So like Kate mentioned, we are heading into terminal count and Falcon 9 is ready for that configuration. We also just heard the call out that the Falcon 9 tanks are pressurized for strong back retraction. The strong back is that white structure you see to the right of the vehicle right now. That's used not only to connect the vehicle's umbilicals, but also as a structural support system.
The strong back is retracting?
Up until it begins to retract, which we just heard the call out for here. That's the mechanism we use both to move the rocket out to the launch side and pull it into its vertical orientation ahead of launch.
Do suporte de apoio do Falcon 9 Dragon.
Keep an eye on it as it retracts slightly here on your screen.
We'll be able to see those clamp arms begin to open. And there they are now. And then that strong back will retract a couple degrees away. It will retract even further upon ignition of the engines to clear the way for Falcon 9's ascent. As I mentioned before, RP1 is completely loaded onto the vehicle. We're still loading liquid oxygen onto the first and second stage. And obviously some happy cheers as the crowd is growing outside of Mission Control Hawthorne, as we see there on your screen. It's always awesome to have an astronaut launch, but especially one during the day.
Recuo dando suporte de apoio do Falcon 9 Dragon.
Stage 1 LOX load is complete.
Estágio 1 com abastecimento
With that confirmation,
concluído.
we know that stage 1 is fully loaded. Team is thrilled to hear that news behind me.
Na marca de 2 minutos, aí teremos a...
Dragon is in terminal count and is on internal power.
There is confirmation that Dragon is on internal power and headed into the final minutes of our countdown.
Então, na marca de 2 minutos, aí teremos a confirmação do abastecimento concluído, então, para o estágio 2.
As I was saying earlier, at liftoff, Falcon 9 will be burning nearly 700 gallons of fuel per second. Great views there, too, of our crew inside Dragon, awaiting liftoff just over 2 minutes from now.
Dois minutos.
We're now standing by for completion of LOX load on the second stage. Just topping off.
Abastecimento concluído para o estágio 2. Está 100% abastecido o Falcon 9 Dragon.
Crowd here at Hawthorne, California.
Dragon is in auto idle.
Confirmation there that Dragon is in auto idle. Wow, great view of 39A on your screen right there as we head toward launch.
Gas close up started. Expect
válvulas fechadas.
Call out to our crew there that loud venting is expected.
Minuto final para o lançamento. Falcon 9 para o modo automático de lançamento.
Confirmation that Falcon 9 is in startup and Dragon is in countdown.
50 segundos.
Which means that the vehicles are now controlling the final seconds as we lead up to liftoff.
Dragon, SpaceX, go for launch.
Falcon 9, Dragon, SpaceX liberado para o lançamento.
From our flight director.
Go for launch.
We are go for launch.
30 segundos.
T-minus 30 seconds.
Segundos.
15.
E agora vamos entrar na fase final da contagem regressiva em 10.
10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Ignição e lançou às 18 horas e 49 minutos pelo horário de Brasília. Lançou a primeira missão tripulada em 2024 com a missão AXIOM-3 da SpaceX Dragon.
Further beyond,
vamos ouvir.
Opening the door for more to follow. Godspeed AX3.
Stage 1 propulsion is nominal.
Of course, if you are just joining us, this is the launch of the AXIOM-3 launch to the International Space Station. Those incredible views on your screen, and there's our first shot of the AX-3 crew inside Dragon on ascent. Now, in just a few seconds here, we should hear the call out that Falcon 9...
power and telemetry. Stage 1 throttle down.
There's that call out that Falcon 9's engines are throttling down to help us pass through the period of maximum dynamic pressure during ascent.
Max Q.
Já estamos em minuto de missão, já estamos em Max Q,
and that Falcon 9 is going faster than the speed of sound. Now, at this point, we will begin to throttle Falcon 9's engines back
Próximo evento,
up.
então, aí do nosso voo será o Nico, onde teremos 3 eventos em um só, que é o desligamento do primeiro estágio, separação e ignição do estágio 2.
We're now T plus 1 minute and 32 seconds into flight. The next event we have is MVAC chill, similar to what there's that call telling us that, again, we're flowing a little bit of that super chilled liquid oxygen.
Stage 1 Bravo.
Copy 1 Bravo.
That call there was one of the abort mode callouts that the crew is calling out as they are making their ascent on Falcon 9. Now, we're less than 30 seconds or a few seconds away from flight events that will happen in rapid succession. Main engine cutoff, or MECO, as it's there on the bottom of your screen, stage separation, ignition of the first stage engine, and the first stage's boost back burn.
Stage 1, throttle down.
That call telling us that the engines are beginning to throttle down.
MECO.
MECO. Stage separation confirmed.
Separação do estágio 1 para o estágio 2. Ignição do estágio 2.
Loud cheers here.
Lindas imagens aí.
Stage 1 boost back startup.
First and second stages have separated. A beautiful view there. The brighter light is the second stage under power of the MVAC engine. That first stage booster is now heading back toward the Florida coast. One thing I love about daylight launches is we're going to get some amazing views. We should be able to see the Space Coast come back into view as the first stage gets closer and closer to landing zone 1. Note that that first stage is actually still coasting to its average. About, as you can see there on your screen, 114, 115 kilometers above the Earth's surface. And it's going to keep coasting for a little bit. Beautiful view there on the right-hand side of your screen of that MVAC engine.
Boost back shut down.
All right, that boost back burn has concluded on the first stage.
Recuo aí do primeiro estágio do Falcon 9 já foi concluído.
Everything looks nominal with the second stage trajectory. Everything also looking good.
Dragon, SpaceX, trajectory nominal.
Everything looking good on the first stage as well as we see those grid fins begin to deploy.
SpaceX Dragon loud and clear.
Ambos os
now the next two major events we're tracking for the first stage, which right now is on the left-hand side of your screen, is going to be the entry burn at about T plus 6.5 minutes, where we'll light 3 of Falcon 9's first stage engines, followed shortly thereafter by the landing burn at T plus 7 minutes and 32 seconds, which will be a single engine burn to bring us back to landing zone 1 at Kennedy Space Center. Great view there of our crew on board.
Número 49A na Flórida, nos Estados Unidos.
And you can, of course, always keep an eye on their telemetry down in the bottom corner of your screen.
Em direção à Estação Espacial Internacional.
At this point, we should be just about a minute and a half away from that entry burn start.
SpaceX trajectory nominal.
Good callouts there that we continue on a nominal trajectory with Dragon.
SpaceX Dragon, we copy.
And acknowledgement from the crew. These are incredible views on your screen right here. Again, the left-hand side of your screen is stage 1, making its way back to Florida, and stage 2, you see that MVAC engine burning, taking our AX-3 crew to orbit.
Complexo aí no Cabo Canaveral, na Flórida.
That entry burn we're waiting on here is going to be a relatively quick burn, and what we're doing with our first stage is effectively scrubbing off some of that velocity as we come in for landing.
Dragon, SpaceX, trajectory nominal.
That's a nominal trajectory for Dragon as we continue to orbit.
Dragon, we copy.
Again, confirmation from the crew. And we are expecting about 2.5 more minutes from that second engine burn.
Stage 1 entry burn startup.
Entrada iniciada.
Stage 1 entry burn.
Entrada concluída. Estamos a 200 km no estágio 2 aí com a Dragon. 13.000 km por hora. E no estágio 1, a reentrada então já foi concluída. Estamos aí iniciando procedimentos para o pouso. Então na zona de pouso número 1.
That entry burn has concluded. The next burn will be the landing burn. As I mentioned before, we're heading back to landing zone 1. We're going to come through the clouds right now.
Dragon, SpaceX, trajectory nominal.
Everything continues to look nominal for
SpaceX Dragon, we copy.
For the second stage there on the right-hand side of your screen. These views really are breathtaking. Such clear, crisp views of both the first stage on the left and the second stage on the right. Right through with these clouds should be our first view. Once again, there it is. Just like magic, we see landing
está
zone
ele
1.
aí na zona de pouso número 1.
Crowds cheering here at SpaceX Mission Control Hawthorne as we tune in to see if we stick the landing.
E pousou às 18 horas e 57 minutos. Pousou o primeiro estágio do Falcon 9 Dragon após 7 minutos e 42 minutos. 43 segundos.
Falcon 9 has landed once again, but turning our attention back to the crew, as you see there, our next event is second engine cutoff. Or SECO, as it's referred to there at the bottom of your
screen. Dentro de instantes, então teremos aí o desligamento do segundo estágio e a liberação da Dragon.
Is buzzing. You can hear commentary behind us. Right now, the crew is experiencing about 3 Gs, so pretty much a roller coaster for those thrill seekers out there.
Stage 2 is in terminal guidance.
And we are about 20 seconds away from that second engine cutoff. MLA will know this feeling very well, this experience of going from now almost 4 Gs to
Dragon Shannon.
To
copy Shannon.
As another abort mode there being called out. Now standing by for second engine cutoff.
Estamos aí então na guarda aí do desligamento do segundo estágio. Shutdown, desligamento do segundo estágio.
Invex shutdown.
9 minutos.
Dragon, SpaceX, you're in a nominal orbit.
Estamos em boa
There
órbita.
we heard those call outs of second engine shutdown and nominal orbital insertion.
Launch escape system disarmed.
And the disarming of our launch escape system. That, of course, means that our AX-3 crew is getting their first experience here in microgravity.
Guardando a liberação da Dragon.
Right now, Dragon is performing a series of onboard checks to ensure that we're ready to begin actuating those Draco maneuvering thrusters on board the vehicle. Now, as we prepare for Dragon separation, we should have a great camera view here in just a couple of minutes. Oh, wow, and beautiful views of the Earth. And our MVAC engine up there in orbit as well.
Minutos de missão. Estamos voando então a 27.000 km por hora. A 200 km de altitude.
Views there as we await that separation.
Estamos aguardando a liberação da Dragon.
Absolutely incredible images that we are getting back from up in space as we await Dragon separation in just about a minute.
More
views there of our AX-3 crew on board Dragon.
Minutos.
We are now just about 30 seconds away from that anticipated Dragon separation. Starting to see the crew there play a little bit with the fact that they are operating in microgravity. And a great shot of mission control here in our headquarters at Hawthorne, California. This camera view here is taking a look at Dragon. What we're waiting for is nose cone deployment, among other things, which is
liberação da Dragon, 19 horas e 1 minuto pelo horário de Brasília. Temos aí a liberação da Dragon para a missão AXIOM-3.
Dragon has separated from the second stage. A pretty cool view here looking up at the heat shield that will return the AX-3 crew back to Earth in just about 2 weeks. So this is our first view of AX-3 flying free.
Então eles vão ficar lá na Estação Espacial Internacional por 2 semanas.
The next physical change that we will see will be the
onde eles vão
deployment of
realizar
the
aí
nose
cerca de
cone.
30 experimentos científicos em microgravidade.
SpaceX, Falcon team, we want to congratulate you on a great ride to orbit. I think you're demonstrating the ultimate in reuse, a reused Commander, a reused Dragon, and a reused Falcon. Or maybe flight experience is a better
13
word.
minutos.
Enjoy space.
And AXIOM-3.
Então vamos com a tripulação aí, toda ela europeia, né? Da Espanha, Itália, Turquia e Suécia.
Walter, Alper, and Marcus. Congrats, welcome to your first flight on Dragon. Mike, on the other hand, welcome to the Dragon Frequent Flyer Club. I imagine you'll have enough miles to qualify for platinum status after this flight. Godspeed, AXIOM-3, cheers.
Mark, thanks to you and your team. We're very grateful up here.
So some back and forth between the AX-3 crew as well as AX-3 Chief Engineer Bill Gerstenmaier, who oh, I heard the ping. That is our first Quindartone of AX-3. Fun fact, Bill Gerstenmaier was actually chief engineer on AX-1, which is the mission that MLA was also commander of. So if you want to talk about reuse, we also have some reuse on our side as well. We also heard some nice words from launch director Mark Soltis. So just some really nice communication from both the Falcon team and the Dragon team to the AX-3 crew.
And with that, our AX-3 crew is in orbit and on their way to the International Space Station. Obviously, great views of the crew there. And now mission control, again, that's...
SpaceX Dragon. Jake, any chance you could encode one of the centerline cameras? We could watch the nose cone.
The crew's getting right into it. I love it.
Dragon, we copy on the request. And Dragon, we expect that will automatically happen in the state machine here imminently.
So with that, we are going to throw it back over
We see hooks still traveling.
Okay, we stand by.
Estamos na guarda então da abertura do nariz da Dragon.
Great views there of our crew, again, on their way to the International Space Station. And already getting right down to the business of operating Dragon. You can still see a huge number of our team gathered behind mission control.
Dragon SpaceX, we see nominal dehumidifier activation and service section Draco checkouts.
And confirmation that we're getting nominal checkouts of those Draco thrusters on board Dragon.
Copy, Jake. And for your awareness, we have visors open. Crew are well, feeling well.
Copy. Great news.
So for those of you that have just recently tuned in, AX-3 is in space. The crew is experiencing their first taste of microgravity. Here is a view of our MVAC engine, which has been shut down. The crew has actually separated away from the second stage, which is where that MVAC engine is located. We are standing by for
E logo
nose
mais
cone
então teremos aí
deployment.
os melhores
This takes
momentos
a few minutes
da
to
missão, do voo
complete,
de
as
hoje,
there are
aqui
two
no
sets
canal.
of hooks that need to be opened independently of each other. By deploying the nose cone, we are able to expose the docking mechanism, which is, of course, what the crew will utilize, what Dragon will utilize to autonomously dock with the International Space Station.
Estamos já com 17 minutos de missão.
Overall, it was a pretty smooth flight all the way through countdown to liftoff. We're now approaching 17.5 minutes into flight.
Lembrando de deixar o like aí na transmissão e de se inscrever no canal. Lembrando que amanhã, a partir das 10h55 da manhã, teremos transmissão aí para a missão Slim, com pouso
Once
da
again, the
sonda
next
da
milestone
JAXA
will
na
be to
Lua.
deploy the nose cone. This is basically the last physical change that Dragon will undergo in order to begin its journey. Well, not really begin. It's already on the way, but in order to be ready for its approach to the International Space Station.
Estamos aí aguardando então a abertura do nariz da Dragon. E aí, portanto, a abertura do nariz da Dragon às 19h07.
All right, so it's hard to see at the moment because the camera is still close to the hardware, but this is the nose cone opening. Slow and steady wins the race. Of course, when you're in space, every action has an opposite and equal reaction. So for very good reasons, we don't just fling the thing open. It's very slow and steady. Again, this allows us to expose the docking mechanism, the hardware that will be utilized to dock with the International Space Station. That hatch, which is the forward hatch, will then be opened, and that's how the crew will get in and out of Dragon while it is up at the space station for the next 2 weeks. So that side hatch, which is where we saw the crew, or technically they were already in by the time that we started our broadcast, but the crew did ingress Dragon today, just a couple hours ago, through that side hatch. That remains closed. That won't open again until they are safely back on Earth on our recovery ship. So this nose cone that we see here slowly being opened is basically opening the first part of a multi-system door for them to get in and out of the International Space Station. I mentioned before that docking is autonomous. That means that Dragon does the steering itself. Our pilot, Walter Villadei, has the training and the capability to take control if necessary, but nominally speaking, Dragon flies on autopilot. It does the thinking and the calculation itself, which at the end of the day is ultimately much safer than human steering, as there's more that humans are prone to error because we are human. So that's a live view there of SpaceX Mission Control Center here at SpaceX headquarters in Hawthorne, California. It is in the middle of our workday, so of course, many folks have returned to their positions, their desks, their job, and they are continuing to do what we do best, and that's build spacecraft and rockets and send people to space, just like we have done today. So with that, let's check in over with Courtney, who is standing by at the ISS Mission Control Center in Houston. Courtney, how are things looking over there? It's over to you.
Hey, Kate, everything is great. What a beautiful launch today. And with today's successful launch of AX-3, the teams at NASA's Johnson Space Center will be monitoring Dragon's flight to the International Space Station over the next 36 hours. NASA's role in this journey really kicks in at a period called Integrated Operations, where Dragon is much closer to the station. At this point, NASA, SpaceX, and AXIOM space teams are all in lockstep to get the crew safely docked. The teams here are preparing for a docking docking of AX3 to the station on Saturday morning. For now, that will be it from us in Mission Control Houston, and we'll be back with you Saturday for docking. And for now, we'll send it back to you, Kate and John.
Thanks, Courtney. And we did hear that we had nominal opening of the nose cones, so that is great news. Yeah. Now, over the next 30 hours, 30 plus hours, really, Dragon will execute a series of burns to gradually raise and line up the AX3 crew for docking with the International Space Station in what we refer to as the activation and rendezvous phase of the mission. In just a few minutes, the crew will change out of their spacesuits and get a little bit more comfortable for flight, and something that would be my favorite part, enjoy their first meal aboard the spacecraft. Over the course of their flight, they will have a rest period that will last for about 8 hours. Before they arrive at the space station, we will have 2 potential opportunities to chat briefly with the crew on orbit, one around 3:15 p.m. Pacific and another around 6:20 p.m. Pacific.
Dragon SpaceX, environments look good for suit doffing, and the cabin camera is soon to be configured. You're go for suit doffing.
Copy, we'll put 4.012 in work.
All right, so that call out there just saying that the crew is clear to take off their suits. As I had mentioned, they're able to get a little bit more comfortable for the upcoming journey. Now, we were talking about some on-orbit opportunities to chat with the crew. While we are hopeful that one of those opportunities will work out, neither opportunity is guaranteed, as they are, unfortunately, dependent on both crew schedule and ground station coverage. However, if we are able to support, we'll make an announcement on our social media channels no later than 15 minutes before the event start time. In the meantime, be sure to keep tabs on the mission at axiomspace.com, and you can also track...
And Dragon cameras are external.
You can also track Dragon's flight on spacex.com/launches.
Right, like you mentioned, Kate, even if we aren't able to talk live with the crew, we will continue to provide updates on the mission across our social media channels. And then, as Dragon and the AX3 crew approach the International Space Station early on the morning of January 20th, we'll pick back up with our live joint coverage of the AX3 crew docking the station with NASA. So please keep an eye on Axiom and SpaceX social channels for updates, as there will be plenty of incredible moments to share with you over the course of the mission. So from all of us at Axiom Space, thank you, SpaceX.
Aí, nessa transmissão, e nos vemos amanhã a partir das 10h55 da manhã para a missão Slim, ou mais cedo aí na madrugada para a missão Starlink, aguardando aí a confirmação da SpaceX. Muito obrigado a todos, desejo a todos uma ótima noite e por hora eu fui.